Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 287. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, alongside Johnny V.
That's a pink shirt you got today.
Hey,
I mean, you can't lie. It's not salmon. It's not. I mean,
No.
that is hot pink.
It is pink, and I own it, and I love it. Of course, this will forever have a special place in my heart. This pink shirt acquired for the pink party that took place in Croatia, and
I know.
the memories of Croatia.
I assumed it was to hide your red face.
No. It's all with that partial blend that I have going on. But
everybody noticed the difference between days 1 and days 2, and day 1 and day 2 between Terry, who hadn't gotten a lot of sun, or was it 2 and 3? Either way, and then Terry, who did get a lot of sun.
Either way, I was applying sunscreen. And everybody, I'm naturally red, people.
I know.
Okay?
I know.
So just keep that in mind. I am naturally
You're easily
colored.
flushed.
I'm going to get flushed here in a minute. So welcome, everyone, again, 287. And tonight we are going to have none other than Calvin Heinberg joining us. I know it's been a while. In fact, it's almost been exactly a year since he's been on the show. He joined us last year after winning the opening event of the 2019 National Tour in Vegas. Well, tonight he's going to talk to us a little bit after he's now, of course, won the opening event on the 2020 Disc Golf Pro Tour. And also, I did reach out to Paige Pierce and asked her if she would be interested in joining us. And in typical Paige-like fashion,
She said no.
she said,
creeper.
I don't think it is going to be possible this week. I'm in Sedona camping with bad service, but I would rather her be there camping and enjoying her time than with us tonight, because we have all year to catch up with her. So I hope she enjoys her time in Sedona.
Unlike Calvin, she likes to win throughout the year. Calvin just likes to bookend the year. So we might not get Calvin until September. I hope
next year.
Or next year. I don't know. I hope that's not the case. I hope we get to check with them a few more times this year. But
all right. Well, if you guys could go out, like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff on the podcast. Let everyone know you're watching live disc golf podcasting. And I think without further ado, we can welcome to the show. He's hanging out in our Disc Baron digital green room. We're going to bring him in and welcome our champion from this weekend, Calvin Heinberg.
Hi, Calvin.
Hello. I'm here. No longer in the green room.
Yeah.
No. How does that feel? I mean, some people are like, wow, where are they and what are they doing and what's it like? What is it like to hang out in a digital green room?
I can see you, but you're ignoring me, so it's pretty boring, really.
True.
Much like a lot of interviews with Terry Miller. I mean, let's be real.
Well, welcome. You are back home already. That didn't take long. Safety
I flew
Harbor,
back
Florida?
Monday at 2 a.m.
Is your plan just to stay there now through that Florida swing, or are you coming back out to Waco? I haven't even looked at registration at all.
I'm still figuring out Waco. I'm signed up for it, but I don't have logistics necessarily worked out to where I'll be there. So Waco's uncertain. I'll definitely be at Texas States. And then, I'll be doing Throw Down the Mountain in Tallahassee, the beginning and end of the Florida A-tier swing.
Yeah, and break down for everyone, maybe it's all too easy for you being from Florida, but we really see 3 or 4 great events take place in Florida back-to-back weekends. And then now Texas has really created their own swing. What factors into it for you, and then what should factor into it for other people? Is it just geography, or is it points and tours? What are you thinking?
For me, it's geography. I think even last year the Texas swing happened at the same time as the Florida swing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there was nothing that was like other than Waco. Waco happened same time as it did, this year. But basically it was Waco and then Florida swing. But yeah, none of the other Texas events were Pro Tours or NTs, so I didn't really prioritize going to them. But I think geography makes the Florida Tour a little bit tough, especially when there's an NT and a Pro Tour in Texas. It makes it hard to want to drive all the way down to Florida. I mean, I think the distance from Throwdown to Tyler is like 1,000 miles or something. So it's not really logistically possible or really worth it to do both. But I don't know. I'll struggle through it.
I mean, I'm sure people are reaching out, just begging you to come for clinics, maybe some motivational talks, some things of that nature.
Yeah, I getting tons of requests for motivational talks. That's what everyone seems to want.
If we're going to just sidestep for a moment, and we're going to pretend like disc golf doesn't exist, and we're going to pretend like engineering isn't on the forefront of what you're thinking about, or you don't have a professional training or career in that or education in that. What's next? What would be next? Take away disc golf, take away engineering. What gets you going next?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have no clue what I'd be doing. I don't know. I'm already as clueless on what I want to do with the rest of my life right now. I mean, now you're taking away my schooling and my, hobby / job now.
The two
I'm
things
basically lost.
Yeah, the two things he's best at. Well, one of the most common things that people bring up when they talk about you is just your cool, calm demeanor on the course. And a couple people have posited whether that is kind of maybe due to the fact that you're not necessarily treating this at disc golf, I'll say, as a career. That this, and maybe we're wrong, but this kind of feels like a fallback for you as opposed to your primary chemical engineering. Is that correct?
Yep, chemical engineering.
Is that part of it, or do you truly treat disc golf like a career and you're just not sure?
Yeah, I think I'm still kind of figuring that out. Last year was definitely a testing the waters kind of year. And, it was good enough for me to come back and do it again. I think in order to make this sustainable more long-term, I definitely have a lot of things I need to improve on, whether it be mostly in personal branding. But, yeah, that comes with, social media and other media outlets, which I currently probably have a grade of F in, but
go look at go check out Ricky about 5 years ago, and I guarantee you guys are like neck and neck. Ricky 5 years ago and you now, there's a progression. I guarantee it.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe I'll have to go check that out. But yeah, currently I'm failing on those marks. So long-term disc golf that isn't really sustainable. I mean, you can only be a player for so long. So I mean, in order to make it sustainable, you have to really make the years as a player. You really got to prioritize them and brand now, so that later, people want you to do all those clinics and people are interested in your brand. Like you can kind of see, like EMAC doesn't necessarily like play much anymore, but people still like swarm to his table at the GBO Fly Mart because of his brand.
Yeah, so. And of course the course designing and then the podcasts and all of those types of things that he's still heavily involved with and working there at DD. You're exactly right. I feel like our players are getting wiser, like you're saying, getting wiser to the idea of, hey, what's after disc golf once maybe those skills are starting to not hold up quite as long.
we see a lot of players now trying to dip their toe in media, whether it's post-production commentary, live commentary, just a lot of that stuff. Does any of that interest you at this point?
Yeah, I mean, the only time I've ever done post-production commentary was actually for Terry last year, Tallahassee. I don't know if that's like necessarily something that I'm very good at. I don't know. I never really went and got feedback on it, but it's cool. It's kind of fun to do, especially if you do it with someone that you know and you're pretty good friends with. But yeah, those opportunities don't really come up very often. There's some pretty well established commentary teams, and they seem to handle most of the commentary throughout the year.
Yeah, I feel like though, and I've said this a few weeks ago, and we just experienced it having Madison and Erica when I did the coverage for Vegas, that we have to continue to try various teams. Even if someone Madison's been doing it quite a bit, Erica not so much, but they got together and they were a very well received team. And I think we just, all of the media outlets have to continue to kind of try them out and see who works well together and see who really enjoys it. Because I feel like you could do 5 rounds and then be like, man, I don't ever need to do this again. And you can decide accordingly. So.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I mean, if the opportunities present themselves, I'll definitely give it a shot. I mean, I did the one time I had the opportunity. I don't know how it turned out really, but maybe it was good, maybe it was bad.
I'm sure it was great.
I didn't get any hate mail, so I mean, I think that you pretty much nailed it then.
That's good. I mean, do you normally get hate mail?
Yes.
Yeah. Just about everything I do. Come on.
Well, let's talk about this weekend. We'll start. Last year, you started out the year winning Vegas, the NT. This year, you're starting out the year winning the first Pro Tour event. Do you feel like these courses suit your game any particularly better than, we'll say, courses later on in the year, or do you just feel that you're already warmed up for the season?
Yeah, I would say the courses kind of suit my game. I think as far as the Memorial goes, those courses kind of suit a lot of people's games. They're not overly long. I mean, having distance kind of helps a little bit, but like when you talk about Fountain, the course isn't super long. It's really just a birdie or die course, and that's kind of, the beginning. And then Vista, you can kind of separate a little more. There's more technical stuff going on there, but they definitely, it helps to live in Florida and be able to play in the off season. But I think, being open and just like open courses where and having a good idea of how you're just flying airspace is something I'm kind of good at, and it's something that, shows on the Vegas and Memorial courses.
Was there anything in the offseason that you changed up that was significant? I mean, do you feel like the bag you had to close out last year was essentially the same bag that you opened up this year with?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost identical. Yeah, the only new disc I added was the Millennium Draco. But yeah, I mean, it was basically the same bag because I didn't really actually get to play much during the off season since I was nursing a lower back injury. So like I didn't start playing basically after whatever the Pro Tour finale. I came home, played one tournament like a week or two later, and then I was kind of out of disc golf until a week and a half before Vegas. So it was, yeah, I didn't have time to lose any discs really in Florida. So it was basically the exact same bag.
Okay, and I was going to follow that up with, when I saw you at the South Florida Open, that was middle of December. Yeah, yep. middle of December, and you had said that you weren't playing there, and I was quite surprised by it. A lot of your friends were playing, you were there hanging out and whatnot, but you were talking about your injury. Can you maybe just expand on it a little bit, what it was and where you feel like you are with it now?
Yeah, I mean, I've had issues, whether it be in the past with my really lower right back. As far as lower back injuries, like there's nothing that like they really have been able to tell me exactly what's wrong. Lower back injuries are kind of vague, and there's a million things that can be causing them, and it's probably something nowhere close to exactly the spot that's hurting. So, but right now, no, it's doing a lot better. It's almost not bothering me at all. So I feel really good, and should be good for the rest of the year, hopefully, as long as I keep the exercises up and keep on top of it.
Yep, keep that stretching happening. Trust me, it's not going to get any. With being a tall gentleman as myself and you are, it doesn't get any better as you get older. Trust me.
I'll trust you on that.
When you're talking about getting prepped or trying to make sure that you're addressing it, do you work with Seth at Disc Golf Strong? Do you have your own stretches? Have you sought any other professional help outside of maybe what Seth and Disc Golf Strong do for you?
Yeah, I mean, I worked a decent bit with Seth there at the, I don't know, probably from in January and February. But yeah, I also sought out some other, professional advice, and yeah, between all of that, it's been improving.
Awesome. Now, 4 rounds at Vegas, 4 rounds at the Memorial. You're obviously on the younger side of the spectrum of our superstars. Do you like that, how we start off the season? Does it matter to you whether you're playing 3 rounds or 4 rounds? How many days of rest you have in between, travel days, all those types of things? Have any of those things even crossed your mind for long-term consideration?
Not a ton, but I mean, for me, it kind of sucks everything starting on the West Coast at the beginning of the year. I mean, I have to get out there. Last year I drove, which didn't make that mistake again. I decided to fly this time. But yeah, I mean, as far as, travel time between Memorial and Vegas, they're pretty close, and none of the courses are like too tricky to where like a quick turnaround is necessarily a bad thing. And most of the people that are there have already played these courses, and not much changes year in, year out. So we've all already seen these courses, at least most people have. I mean, this year I had seen the courses for the second time, and I felt like learning them, it was just a refresher, really, because nothing really changed. So the turnaround isn't that bad, but I mean, if I were to do that, every week throughout the year, that would really probably suck. So, but yeah, I mean, having it, every once in a while isn't really a big deal.
Now, there's a lot of speculation as to why some players don't participate, or at least this year didn't participate in Vegas. Last year being a national tour event, it was essentially a no-brainer. And then coming down to the Pro Tour opener, without it being a national tour event, do you feel like that's specifically what maybe kept a few people away, or said, okay, I'll just start a week later?
Yeah, I think that probably kept a lot of people away. It kind of lost a little bit of I guess it's prestige, you could say. I mean, losing the NT title. I mean, I know Innova still was putting the same amount of support, if not more, backing into the event. There was tons of media out there and everything, so it probably had as much media coverage as any of the other, like, national tours will have. But, as far as winning that event, it probably lost a little bit of prestige. And some people may just not like being out in Vegas, so they decide, let me spend an extra week in Arizona and prepare for, the Memorial.
Now, you're only 23?
Nope, I'm 24.
24, okay. Does does the Vegas lights and excitement, does that have any appeal to you?
Not really. Yeah, I mean, I've been to Vegas twice, and I really haven't done the full Vegas experience, or whatever you want to call it. So I've really only gone to play the tournament, and I've been focused on playing the tournament both times I've been there.
All right. Sounds like you could maybe expand just a little bit. I was going to say, what's the craziest thing you've done in Vegas? But
there's really nothing crazy that I've done, so I don't know. I mean, slept in a shitty hotel room.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, that's the Vegas experience.
That can be part of it. All right, over at Wild, and then heading over to Wild Horse. Yeah, I mean, that I will admit, our good friend Matt Graham from Kids Disc Golf, who helped me out last week at the doing the FPO coverage, that was his first time there, and I felt kind of bad. Like, we're there, and everybody's there to work or to play golf, and so it's cool that it's in Vegas, but unless you really go out of your way for it, it feels like everybody's got their mind set on the task at hand, which is probably a good thing. Did you hear any crazy stories? Maybe that's a better question.
No, didn't hear anything that crazy. So
nothing this year.
I'm sure there were crazy things that happened, but didn't hear any of the stories.
So the next few weeks, Florida, and then and you're going back and forth. I know you said with Waco, or the idea of getting over to Waco. Do you see yourself on the tour full time the rest of the year after that? I mean, kind of break down where people are going to see you and what you prioritize for events you're going to play.
Yeah, I'll be full-time tour for the remainder of the season. I'll be hitting most of the pro tours, and I'm pretty sure all of the national tour events this year, as well as, making it over to Europe for the European Open. So I'm basically prioritizing, all the biggest events, and then maybe sprinkle a few A tiers in there as well.
What would you say, now that you've had a full year on tour last year, what are either some of the mental or actual notes you left for yourself, or wanted to put on a Post-it for yourself for your second year on tour full time? What'd you learn?
Yeah, I mean, I learned that, driving around the country is definitely all year. I mean, it has its ups and downs. Lots of miles in the car, and definitely just stop a little more. You can take your time getting places. That'll be a little bit easier for me this year as opposed to last year. Last year, I was pretty motivated to try to get the places because a lot of the courses were courses I was seeing for the first time. So now as far as this year, I'm still trying to get out there and practice, but instead of rushing over, starting to leave maybe Sunday night or early Monday morning, I might be able to do something, on Monday and then break my drives up a little bit, in smaller, more manageable, portions rather than doing, 12-hour days and stuff on some of those trips.
What are you filling that time with as you drive? What's radio, podcasts, audio books? What's on Calvin's radio?
Yeah, I like to scan radio stations. You can sometimes find some quality stuff, but most of the time, there's not quality stuff, but you still listen to it. Occasionally I'll put on random podcasts that, my uncle likes to send me podcasts, but so just random things. But most of the time it's just me scanning the radio, or in some cases you're driving through Texas and there is no radio because you're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So last year you traveled quite a bit with Madison Walker, and the board is asking kind of the same. Do you foresee yourself still traveling quite a bit with her this year, or are you going to be alone? And then, what kind of vehicle and situation are you looking at there?
Yeah, I mean, last year I'm driving the same vehicle as I did last year. I just have a Mazda 3 that I was driving around in. I did put a topper on it during the off season, so I have a little more space. But yeah, Madison and I caravanned a bunch. She has her own vehicle that so we caravanned a bunch throughout the year. I don't know all of her exact plans, but I'm sure we'll do some of that again this year.
Overall, net positive or net negative, your touring time with Madison last year?
Definitely positive.
Okay.
Definitely positive.
She's not going to listen to this. Don't worry.
I was waiting for your pause to see just where that was going to go.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the battle on the final round here at the Memorial. At what point did you feel, I'll say, comfortable with the round in your play, or even when did you feel like you had it wrapped up? Was it on hole 18 when Eagle went OB, or like did you ever feel beforehand you're like, okay, I think this is under control?
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, even on 18 when I watched him miss the triple Mando, I mean, I knew I could still mess up and end up in a playoff, which I tried to do, but
you tried to mess up a few times, let's be honest, at that end. I watched you miss like a 20-foot putt into the front of the basket. And
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that was just, I wanted to make it exciting for the viewers. I don't know. I mean,
we appreciate that. We truly do. I'd rather see you win, but we do appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I did start a little slow during the round. The first 5 holes are kind of where you want to get I feel like if you want to shoot a good round, you should get 4 or 5, and I don't know. I feel like I might have only gotten 2 of the first 5. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't quite even really ever feel in control of what I was doing, maybe until, I don't know. I mean, once I made that putt on hole, I guess it's 12, that's where I was starting to feel really good. Yeah, that putt from underneath the tree, that's kind of was the turning point mentally for me. I think that's also where I took a 1-stroke lead, but that was kind of a mental turning point for me because, I guess taking the lead and then everything was just kind of going my way at that point.
Was there any question at all about you going for that? I mean, you have the OB right behind you, and a simple miss, and you're going OB and you're giving a stroke back to him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. OB didn't even come into my thought process. I don't know. I walked up to the putt and I felt like I could make it. There was a slight headwind, which actually I kind of liked, with the branches kind of there, I don't know. I just kind of felt like it was nice having a kind of headwind so I could just kind of toss it a little softer and let the wind, rise the disc into the basket. So it was nice having the headwind, but yeah, I stepped up to it and everything just seemed to just feel like it was, good to go. And yeah, I don't know. There was never a doubt of, whether or not I was going to hit basket or not. So OB wasn't really a question in my mind.
Yeah, because arguably we saw Eagle take the worst break there where he quote unquote parked it, hit the bottom, and rolled about 40 feet away. And unfortunately couldn't convert, which was a perfect opportunity for you to step in and take control.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm looking at your stats as you mentioned. Yeah, you did start out just getting 2 out of the first 5. You got hole 6 before you had the long walk, and then you had that string of, I don't know, 10 or so birdies in a row. And then I think, as I asked you in the final interview, it was kind of crazy to see you throw it so far and so well on hole 15.
Oh, you crushed
and you just
that.
absolutely smashed it. One of the longest drives I've ever seen on that hole. And then unfortunately, you still walked away with the par. So definitely a missed opportunity. I'm just trying to rub that in, I guess, if there's any confusion here.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty sad to, throw it that far in that hole and then proceed to get the worst score on your card. But yeah, the drive was pretty sick. I did, almost the same thing both rounds at Vista. We had a good helping wind, and yeah, just was able to get it way down there to where I had, relatively short approaches, but I did execute both approaches both days, just I didn't execute the putts both times. So.
Okay.
No, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be better than everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thinking about how, I was going to say smart, but maybe analytical you are, do you look at your UDisc stats? Do you ever think, okay, well, it's Sunday night, I won, but where did I struggle this weekend? And I'm going to focus on those things in the next 7 or 12 days. Do you do any of that, or do you already know?
Yeah, I mean, I do look at the stats and see kind of what I excelled at relative to the field and what I struggled with. Generally, the struggles for me a lot of times tend to happen on the putting green, I feel like, as far as stats go. But this weekend they were relatively good. I did have a handful of circle 1 misses. But I also did have probably 5 or 6 circle 2 makes throughout the weekend, kind of made up for some of those misses. And, by making circle 2 putts, you kind of, in parking holes, you kind of also tank your C1X putting stat percentage because you have less attempts. But, so, I mean, stats can also be kind of misleading, but I feel like I did almost everything pretty well, except putting on, hole 15, the final round, and then I don't know what happens on hole 2 at Vista, but that putting green, treacherous. Can't make a putt.
So dangerous. So much danger everywhere there.
The big flatness with
with a little bit of a tree. Well, I'm looking at UDisc right now, and I didn't do research. I'm just clicked a few buttons, and it says you were first in fairway hits at 92%, third in your parked percentage, second in circle 1 in regulation, first in circle 2 in regulation, first in birdies. Oh, you were last in scrambles.
Because he didn't have any.
I know. And then, circle 1X putts, you were 25th, and circle 2 putts, you were 29%, which put you in 27th. So maybe you should. Cameron Messerschmidt really loves his circle 2 putting. Have you thought about just not getting it as close so you can really ramp up that circle 2 putting?
No, I would rather just park the hole and tap in.
Okay.
He wants to lead that parked percentage. I think that's the goal.
He's third.
Yeah, getting that parked percentage, is probably the least stressful way to go about playing around at disc golf.
That leads me to a good question, which is, what does stress you out?
I don't know. I don't think there's anything in particular, just sometimes random things do. I don't know.
Anything on the course? Like, do players, passerbys, dogs, music playing in the background that you don't know if it's going to go off again or not? Is there anything on the course that, really stresses you out?
I wouldn't say there's anything on the course that stresses me out, except maybe myself sometimes when I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. But, I mean, there are things that are, sometimes distractions, happen. Things that are moving in the background aren't necessarily a big thing for me, but sometimes, sudden loud noises at just the wrong time, those are pretty rough, and they're kind of hard when you're, zoning everything out just like that weird, loud, sudden thing that's not expected is probably the most distracting. But if there's just a bunch of ambient, noise, it's not really a big deal for me.
What do you make of the gallery and the crowd this weekend at this event in particular? And I think specifically about kind of how nice it is. We have that sidewalk as like an official barrier, and it felt like, to me at least, people were really respectful of it. But how did you feed off the crowd? Did you like, where they were and how they interacted?
Yeah, I mean, the crowd was pretty good. I mean, the staff had, people out there managing the crowd as well. But yeah, there was a good gallery, and they seemed to, respect, the fairways and everything. So they didn't cause me any issues throughout the event. So I'm pleased with the crowd and, how they were out there.
Yeah, really the only place that I feel perpetually the crowd gets in the way at the Memorial lately is hole 14, where I think where you guys are trying to hyzer it right in front of the tree. It tends
for the Mando tree.
Yeah, for the Mando tree. A lot of times, a lot of players will push it out over the sidewalk, which can I think both rounds I saw people. Spectators diving and moving in order to avoid that. But
no water bottles were hit this year.
No water bottles hit this year, Mr. Conrad.
P. James Conrad. But yeah, no, I mean that whole I think they added in that Mando right off the tee to kind of prevent us from swinging out over the sidewalk. But by doing that, they actually made us throw more at the sidewalk. So I mean, ideally we don't miss and pull it right towards the sidewalk, but the miss is more towards the sidewalk, and I feel like you saw a lot of that on the live coverage. I mean, I think all of us kind of, except for Eagle, the final round pulled it, kind of right. I caught the tree. I don't know if he hit the sidewalk, but yeah, we were all kind of Drew, Paul, and I all kind of pulled it wide, and that's kind of where the miss, tends to take you. It's actually more towards the sidewalk. So that Mando may have actually caused more safety issues than they had expected.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it. Now, when you said earlier about, the courses are pretty straightforward, everyone's really familiar with them. One of the criticisms that comes in of this event, and it's not just this year, it's been the last few years, is that maybe the courses are too easy, and maybe our disc technology and our players have outgrown them. You agree or disagree?
I mean, I think there's a lot of valid arguments there. There's not much, excitement at Fountain. I mean, unless you really do like birdie everything. I don't know. Yeah, I think the courses are a little outdated for this technology that we do have now, and I mean, Vista plays a little better as far as the field. I know. I mean, when your hot rounds are closer to 10 or 11 down, I think that's probably better for scoring rather than having hot rounds being 15 or 14 as they are at Fountain. Those should be like the incredible rounds, but like I feel like you watch round one coverage of Paul McBeth and he shoots 15 and it almost looks like he left strokes out there. So I feel like Fountain.
Yeah, he certainly did. I was thinking, I kind of agree with you at Fountain. It feels like it's not necessarily an NT or Pro Tour caliber course anymore. Great for the AM side, advanced side, things like that. But the only way you can guarantee difficulty on that course is to pick up the wind, and we can't ever really force that. If it's really windy, I think it's a fun course to watch because we get to watch everybody kind of struggle on it. Without that wind, that course just really becomes, as they call it, the Heiser Olympics.
Yeah. This year the weather was really good for us out there. Day one it was like dead still, and then day two there was a little bit of wind, but not really that much. I mean, the scores may have been slightly worse, or maybe as a whole probably about the same. But yeah, when the weather is good out at Fountain Hills, you have to birdie almost everything.
Yeah, and is there anything about the game, and some people could say, well, then is that a place where we try smaller baskets or whatever? I know there's a lot of different discussions. Is there anything about the game right now in the sport that you are really passionate about in terms of where it goes next? And again, that could be maybe you're a big erosion control person and you have an environmental angle at it, or you're a scoring and mathematician and you really like the score distributions. I don't know. Is there any particular channel or avenue that you love about disc golf other than just you playing it?
I can't say other than playing it, there's really much that I've devoted a lot of time to. I do think the scoring distribution on holes is pretty interesting, and I think it's like, especially with UDisc, it's a really good tool for tournament directors to look at how their courses scored, in 2020, and then they can make adjustments for 2021 and kind of adjust and tweak holes to get, a better scoring distribution and, make for, a course that actually separates, skill levels, the best from, the not so best. But I think that's probably the thing that interests me the most. But I haven't put much time into anything else other than just playing.
Huh, a stats thing. Weird.
Yeah. Someone smart thinking about stats. Well, I'll follow that up with Bradley Williams made a post this weekend saying that he did the UDisc live scoring, and he did it for 10 holes, and he just, long story short, he didn't care for it. He felt that it was kind of adding some pressure to him, and he didn't enjoy it, and he didn't care for doing it. Do you have a stance? And I don't mean just against Bradley per se, but in general, how do you feel about either the way the scores are, the UDisc stats are acquired, or where we need to go with it? Do you have any strong opinion about it? And does it bother you to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of doing the UDisc stats. I would much rather just use a paper scorecard. And, most of the time there's someone on the card that's willing to do UDisc, so it's never really been a huge issue. But it definitely is it's more work than a paper scorecard, because you're literally, if you want to do it right and actually make it worth it, you're literally inputting a value for every shot that someone throws, and that's every person on your card. So you do have to put a little more of your focus into, thinking about where every one of your card mates' shots land and where they execute from there. And that sometimes does take away from you focusing on your own game. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely work. And, fortunately, I played really well this week. So I was on cards that had dedicated scorekeepers, so I didn't have to deal with that. But I can definitely see where it could bother some people, because it does take a little more time than a paper scorecard, and you do have to put more attention into, inputting stats properly.
Would you ever go as far as thinking, when you walk up to a putt and maybe your disc is right inside the circle by just a few inches, and whether you mark it or not dictates whether or not it's a circle 1 or circle 2 putt? Have you ever thought about your stats to that degree?
No, I mark it. Like, I'm gonna mark it because that's what I do on most of my putts. So, I mean, the stats tell the story. I'm not out here to manipulate the story.
Or
That's
as
valid.
you said earlier, though, sometimes the stats don't tell the whole story, and that can be
They
very
never.
true.
You can paint a bunch of different pictures with stats.
For
So.
sure. I think, isn't there a famous saying about stats? You can make stats lie and say anything. I mean, look at hole 2, for instance. Like you were saying, I know you said that's a treacherous green, but, you could be 22 feet away and be directly behind a tree, and then most of the other holes out there, you could be 50 feet away and can't find a tree. So, and that's not all necessarily shown within the stats, but they're all inside, circle 1 or whatever. So, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, they don't paint the whole picture. They do give you an idea, though. But,
Let's go back.
yeah, I mean, just looking at percentages, like, especially with putting, percentages kind of don't tell the full picture. You got to kind of look at the attempts and see how many were missed relative to the attempts. Because when someone sits here and, someone jams 10 circle 2 putts, that's 10 less circle 1 putts, or, their park percentage, now there's the C1X stat rather than just the circle 1 stat. I mean, you might have only missed, one C1X putt during the whole tournament, but let's say you parked everything and you jammed a bunch of circle 2 putts, and you had 2 C1X putts and you missed one. You have a 50% C1X, but realistically, you could have been playing great.
No, that
I
makes
smell
a lot
a
of sense.
consulting job for somebody here.
UDisc, hire this man. Let's talk a little bit about the off season. It was, I don't know if it was common knowledge or it was pretty well known that you were out of your contract with Innova at the time, and this season you signed, I believe, a 2-year agreement with them. Is that correct?
Yep.
Correct. 2-year agreement. What brought you back to Innova? As opposed to, I'm sure there were other companies, probably most major manufacturers, after the season you had last year, probably reaching out to you. What was it about Innova that kept you inside their family?
Yeah, I mean, I do like their discs. I've been throwing their discs for, I don't know, a long time. As long as I can remember, I've been sponsored by them since 2014. So, anyone that wanted to, remove me from that situation would have to offer me something, significantly better because, I mean, we can throw anything and succeed when, you're good at throwing Frisbees, but there is always a little bit of a learning curve, especially at the beginning of, your next season. And then when I was, dealing with my back injury, I didn't have as much time necessarily to devote to learning new discs and a new bag. So that was also kind of part of the decision, uncertainty of where I was going to be coming into the season. So I think that ended up actually being one of the biggest things for me was, the uncertainty of how I was going to be feeling coming in the beginning of the season. And I didn't want to, come in with a new sponsor, be hurt, and then, never perform like I was the year prior. I don't think that would be fair to a new sponsor.
And I was going to take a quick look because my question is going to be, what do you consider a successful season? Is it wins? Is it total money earned? Is it money on the PDGA page along with sponsorship bonuses? Like what kind of defines a successful season for you, or what will define one here in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just putting together consistently, consistent performances at the top. Money, I can be competing against the same fields and at different tournaments, and then, the money can be different. Like, I think last year, I won the two lowest paying NTs actually, but I won two NTs, but they paid $1,500 less than every other NT. So money isn't necessarily for me at least, isn't the definition of success. I think it has more to do with how I'm performing against the fields week in and week out.
And I'm going to throw a few things at you. I look at 2018 before you went on, full-blown tour. I see that you have 17,000 in earnings. 2019, you almost exactly doubled that to 34,000, almost 35,000. So almost perfectly doubling that.
So
and then
68,000 is what we're looking at this year?
Yeah, I mean, you've got 5,500 in two events thus far already. So obviously, again, off to this great start. But is there a number in your head when you think, okay, disc golf's been fun and it's made me some money, but maybe I need to move into the world of chemical engineering?
I don't think there's a number in my head right now, or I haven't put much thought into that. I'm enjoying disc golf right now, and that's kind of what matters to me right now. So,
do you get sick of us and everyone else asking you why aren't you going into engineering all the time?
I don't know. I feel like I push the question away relatively easily. I just say, I don't know.
Perfect. You're getting good at this gig. That's
okay.
exactly
how much pleasure do you find in giving challenging responses during interviews and questions? How much pleasure do you find in that?
I think it's pretty enjoyable to, I think the interviewer is out there to kind of mess with the interviewee. So if you guys, the interviewee, can kind of throw the interviewer off, maybe it makes for some quality content.
It does. I
At
want
least
you
makes
to
it
keep
more
it up.
enjoyable for me.
I want you to keep it up with Terry all year. Every time he interviews you, I want the hardest response. I want you to make it uncomfortable for Terry with a follow-up question. And everybody here on the podcast will know it, because there's this weekend we had, I want to say like 12 or 13,000 concurrent viewers watching. And when during your interview, there were a lot of people who were like, oh my God, I love him. He's awesome like that. But just our podcast listeners will know that you're really giving Terry the hardest time. So that's what I want.
Yeah.
I expect him to give me the hard hitting questions, and I'll hopefully give him, the hard answers.
So this is some of the things I've seen. How much do you follow social media while you're out and about? It kind of feels like you don't, based on some of your other stuff, because there's been a lot of talk about you in the last couple days.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I'm on and off. I feel like sometimes social media drags you down this weird little rabbit hole that's sometimes hard to get out of. So there'll be times where I'm, a little more active, but most of the time, I'm pretty dormant and I'll scroll a little, but I try not to do that too much.
Because what everybody said was that you needed a sunglasses sponsor. That you were squinting a lot out at the Memorial, which is obvious. It's a very open course. It was very sunny, but people were yelling that get this man a sunglasses sponsorship. Terry, can you help him out with that?
Yeah, I could talk to some people, but then I get yelled at because I got messages this weekend saying, hey, it's not professional to be wearing sunglasses during an interview or to be wearing a hat. And it's like, you keep hearing all these different answers, but do you really want, the interviewer and the interviewee just constantly squinting, trying to respond? I don't know if there's a right answer.
Yeah, I mean, I should probably wear sunglasses more. I did have a pair for a while last year, but I lost them at Ledgestone, and I never really went and bought another pair. But I don't know. I might buy another pair here in the future. But, part of, I did squint a lot, but some of it's just looking at, like, the Jomez intro, and they decided to do the Jomez intro facing the sun. Whatever. It's like 1:30 in the afternoon. They put me right in the sun. Everyone else on my card has a hat or sunglasses. They don't think it's an issue. And I'm standing there. I can't even open my eyes. I try to open like a brief second, and literally I felt like my retinas were like burned, but
fried.
Definitely did squint a lot out there, but I feel like some of it's a little skewed based on that good face time in the Jomez intro.
What about a hat? You're clearly not much of a hat guy. I've seen it so rarely.
I've never seen him in a hat.
I think I've seen it once, but you're just not a hat guy?
Yeah, not as much a hat guy. There was a little stint where I was wearing hats last year. I think maybe kind of around the Florida swing, actually, last year I was wearing some hats. But, yeah, not a super big hat guy. I would probably wear sunglasses before I wore a hat.
Fisherman's cap. That's what I see you in. You're from Florida, like just a nice with a hook on it.
All right.
No.
He says all right.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, shut the hell
up. Shut your mouth.
I don't think that'll happen.
Maybe that's what you'll see.
I will.
If I show up to Waco, I'll make sure to get myself a nice fisherman's hat.
I will, Calvin, if you give me your address, I swear I can have one Amazon Primed there in like 2 days. I will make sure that if I don't see it at Waco, I will be so upset.
Yeah, I mean, there's a distribution center pretty close. It might be here in one day.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You obviously also, I'm sure, saw the many moods of Calvin Heinberg post out there. That was I felt like that was pretty clever. Everybody seems to enjoy the demeanor that you either give or don't give when you're out there on the course. Is that like the interview questions? Has it just become a game for you?
No, I mean, that's just kind of how I approach my rounds. I try to keep it pretty level. Yeah, I feel like when I start to let emotions get in, I just seem to deviate from my game plans. And obviously there's more going on in my head than I'm showing externally, but I try to keep it as even keeled as possible.
What would it take? Oh gosh, we need to make this happen. What would it take to have you like genuinely holler or scream or yell with excitement or enthusiasm? What kind of shot or win
a world's
or situation? What would it take?
You think that's a world's win right there?
I don't know. I don't even know if I don't know. I feel like world's win, I would probably act the same as I did last week.
Smile.
There would probably be more shock in my brain that I actually pulled it off. So I might even be more stoic. I don't know. But yeah, one of the only times I feel like, at least during like a PJ round, that I've ever like gotten super hyped was when I threw in for an albatross out in Ocala. But that's about it. I'm sure an ace would do it too, but I've never had a tournament ace. So
wow, that's surprising.
I didn't know that. I might be in Ocala in a few weeks, so we'll see. Yeah, great.
Perfect.
There's nothing in Ocala, I don't think, other than
there's really nothing.
Yeah,
the course that I albatross at doesn't even exist anymore. So
oh man, I can't even go and worship.
Yeah.
no, can't worship hole 7. High notes. It's gone.
Rest in peace, hole 7.
Do you feel, and whether you feel like you're being cocky or not, I don't feel like you should when you answer this. Do you feel like you could win Worlds this year? Is there any reason why you couldn't win the World Championships?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any reason I couldn't win Worlds. I mean, obviously you have to go out there and perform, and it's one of the biggest. I mean, it is our biggest event. So as far as what sponsors value and the fans are looking at, I mean, that's what gets your name on discs. So it's definitely the most stressful event, I would say. I mean, there's more pressure on every stroke there than there is at any other event. But yeah, I think I'm capable. I obviously have the skills, but going out there and executing is different than having the skills to do it.
Yeah, and now this year being in Utah, elevation is definitely going to come into a factor. You being from Florida, I think it's safe to say you haven't necessarily played in too much elevation. Have you concerned yourself about that, or were you worried about that basically the week before you get there?
I'm not too worried about it. I did. I actually went and played in Utah last year to kind of go check out the world's courses, and because I hadn't been there before. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a change in the flight of some discs, but it's nothing that's unmanageable. Those courses aren't at like any ridiculous elevations. I think they may only be like 3,000 or 4,000 feet. They're not super high, so it's not like my whatever understable T-bird's flying like a Firebird or anything. So
Okay.
everything's pretty manageable, and I'm not too worried about it. There's definitely a little adjustments, and I think the easiest way to be ready for it is actually not necessarily playing on the courses. It's actually going to a field and watching your disc fly rather than just going out and throwing your disc in the water at mulligans.
I'll admit this, and this is a good question off the board. I'm not familiar at all with the Draco. Can you explain it, break it down for people who are maybe wondering a little bit more about it?
Yeah, the Draco is made by Millennium. I think it came out maybe sometime last year, so it's a relatively new Millennium disc. It's an overstable 9-speed, kind of similar to a Firebird. The most overstable version that I've thrown isn't as overstable as like a flat top Firebird, but they're still, when they're new, like a Quantum's their champion like plastic. Their Quantum Draco is pretty overstable. The one I'm throwing that you see in coverage is pretty beat up, so it's not indicative of what you would get if you were to purchase one off the shelf. I do know that their glow plastic, the lunar Quantum plastic is a little less overstable than the normal Quantum plastic, which is the one I'm throwing.
Okay, and it feels like there were a couple of people. I heard the Draco mentioned a few times throughout the weekend by yourself and by a few other people, so it sounds like it's gaining a little bit more favor among our Innova sponsored players. Real quick, as Johnny's pulled it up, I see on the chart I think it was last year or the year before when we first saw a Tour Series disc for yourself. What do you have, and what should people go out and look for and try and purchase to support you?
Yeah, I can't find a 2021 yet. You're winning, and there's no way for people to go out there and get one already. Come on, what's going on?
I mean, it's just like last year. I mean, I'm winning, and there's no Tour Series disc. Ooh. But no, you should expect I'll be on the Swirly Star Destroyer. You should expect that hopefully soon. I think it's planned on being released sometime this month. So good. Within the next few weeks, I would assume it should be being released. And then I'll also have my name on. There'll be a limited release of the Lunar Quantum Draco, and then I'll also be on like all the stock Quantum Dracos. Kind of similar thing to what you saw with Greg Barsby and the Scorpius last year. Awesome. So you'll see me on those 2 discs this year.
And you personally will take a portion of those sales, so everyone that knows if they want to go out and support you, that's how they do it, correct?
Yep. Purchasing either of those discs I do get a portion of those sales, and they support my tour.
Awesome.
All right, Calvin, is there anything else that you need to share with us that we weren't smart enough to ask you about?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't have any hot gossip to share.
You're going to keep something in the tank. I'm okay with that. We'll get it out of you sometime this year.
I don't think we will.
Just keep asking the questions.
All right. Well, we are going to wrap it up. We're going to let you go, but I am looking forward. We may or may not see you in Waco. I know that much, but I know that my plan is to be down at Throwdown the Mountain this year. I think I've been there 5 out of the last 6 years or 6 out of the last 7, whatever it's been.
It's a Silver Series event this year?
I believe it's on the Silver Series yet again, and I know there's a little bit of that Florida swing that is going in and out of being on the Silver Series. So I think I'm going to see you a few times down in Florida. And with that, I'd love to find ways to get you on the mic and have you do some more commentary. I think that would be awesome. Again, it was well received last year, and I'd be more than obliging to have you come in there and spread that love and enthusiasm all over the YouTubes.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
I can tell. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We are, excuse me, we are going to let you go, Calvin. We appreciate you joining us. In all sincerity, it was awesome watching you perform the way you did this weekend. It should be very inspiring for a lot of our newer players that are thinking about hitting the road and going out there and battling through it like you've done these last few years. And super excited to see how the rest of the year continues for you.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to have been able to come on the podcast this evening.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Have a good night, and we'll probably see you sometime in the next week or two.
All right, sounds good. See you then.
All right, see ya. Again, Calvin Heinberg, our champion of the 2020 Memorial Championships, presented by Discraft. And, you know, the one thing I dislike about Calvin winning is now I actually have to think once in a while about what year was it that someone won that, you know, just keeping them all straight. Eagle McMahon, I thought was on pace to repeat. Which would have been very easy for me to remember because I stayed at the same residence as Eagle in 2019. I stayed at the same place here in 2020. So just as I think about, as I get older, I selfishly need
to
these
start remembering
reminders.
the Calvin years.
Now I need to start remembering other things. But in all seriousness, congratulations to Calvin. What a great battle that we saw. And as he said, even with a slow start, missing 3 out of his first 4 holes.
Yeah, those first 5, you really, I feel like you have to get 3. Clearly you don't, but it feels like you have to get 3 of them in order to kind of get that round started. I know Calvin said 4, but I'm looking at, you know, most of the people, and a lot of them are getting 4. The top 6 guys, I think, you know, most of them got 4 other than Calvin. But everybody else is kind of sitting around 2 or 3. I feel like 3 is that number that you get 3 and you're okay with it. Anything more is bonus. Anything less and you really are disappointed.
Well, it was great to see it. On the FPO side, well, actually, let's talk
a little bit about the results.
Yeah,
so
recap a little bit on the MPO here.
Obviously, spoiler alert, if you've been listening, Calvin won.
What?
Yeah,
Dude,
we tried.
You didn't even put it in the title.
Yeah, we tried not to spoil anybody. Second place, last year's winner, Eagle McMahon. Eagle had a great round going up until hole 12 when he hit that when he hit the pyramid and bounced back, and at that point it felt like it was in Calvin's hands the whole way until he missed that putt on 15. Then it kind of became a little bit more of a game, but ultimately Calvin was able to hold on. Third place, Paul McBeth, who honestly struggled that round.
Yeah,
only shot a 10 down. I know that it's only 1 less than Calvin, but you could see it in the way he was playing. You could see the struggle. You could see him just missing shots that he doesn't normally miss. So Paul ends up still getting third place. A bad Paul McBeth is still a podium finisher. Vino.
I believe it's Vino.
Vino. Vino takes 4th place, shooting a 40 under par. 1 less than Paul McBeth, 6 under Calvin. Drew Gibson comes out with a really good start to the season. Drew was on our lead card, I believe, twice. And we saw him on, I think it was the second round, have an issue with a photographer, which Did I see off camera the photographer come up to you on the green?
kind of a funny story in that he did snap, or he was about to snap the photo or whatever, and it was making a noise. Drew stopped. Then Drew went up to get ready again. The gentleman again was taking pictures or doing something or getting ready to take a picture. It was beeping again. And then finally on the third time, he didn't do anything. And then as we were walking down the fairway, I said something about who was it, and someone pointed it out. Later, the gentleman came up to me after.
It's an older gentleman, probably in his
older gentleman,
mid-60s, it looked like.
And he said to me something or other about, I messed up Drew or something like that. He acknowledged the fact that it was him. I said, oh, yeah, you did. And I said, don't worry, I totally blasted you on the broadcast. He goes, what? No, you didn't. I said, yeah, I did. I said, I didn't point you out. No one knows who you are personally, but I definitely was making a note of that it was one individual that was doing it.
And I saw off camera, we had the booth on at the time. We were waiting for you to get an interview on the 18th. On the 18th green, and I saw him come up, and I was listening in my ear to some of the things he was saying, and I'm like, oh, that's the guy.
Well, so if you want to know who he is, he when he did come up to me and talk to me, marking of DG, who's a photographer, an amazing photographer, I believe out of Southern California. He got a picture of the gentleman talking to me. So if you want to know who it is, go to my Instagram, and then you can pinpoint
we can
him.
Call him out.
But we did not call him out on the broadcast. I like that he acknowledged it, but at the same time, I still don't know if he took on the full severity of what he was doing, and that maybe left me still a little bit frustrated with him.
You could tell that got into that clearly got into Drew's head. Like one time. Drew isn't the most calm of people in general.
He's excitable.
One time, I think Drew could have probably just written it off. That after that second time, you could just tell it just shook Drew. Mm-hmm. He threw I think he turned it over into the ground. Didn't get anywhere near what he was going for, and you could tell he was hot after that for a couple holes.
And to be fair, anytime there's a distraction, it's almost as if it's really hard to negate the idea that it's not going to happen again. So you hear a noise, and the guy fixes it. You hear another noise. That third time, it's almost like that in itself kind of works you. I can certainly understand how Drew got a little frustrated, and it's interesting how we watch all of our players react to those. Everybody handles distractions and crowd control and PR just a little bit different. Mm-hmm. So. And I'm not sure it was fair that a lot of people really seem to jump on Drew for that. I can understand that
it's tough.
He was getting frustrated.
I don't blame Drew in the slightest. I think you can look at it and say, yes, Drew should be able to recover from that. He should be able to brush that off because that's what a top level pro should be able to do. But I understand Drew's frustration as well. So for what it's worth, that's kind of where it is. We'll move on from tied. Drew was tied for fourth. In sixth place was Double G. Seventh place, Jeremy Koling, tied with Simon Lizotte and Kale Leviska. And that's it. That's your top 10 pretty much. There's a name there I'm not even going to bother to try to pronounce.
Oyvind
Yarns. Oyvind Yarns.
I did have the pleasure of filming when I was in Norway in September. A phenomenal player, and the quick side story I told about him was the fact that I watched him warm up for a jump putt on the par 5 hole number 10 in Norway. And when he came down goofy on his ankle, and right then and there he twisted it. He fell to the ground. He was on the ground for a good couple of minutes, and then he proceeded to limp through the next 36 holes of the tournament, and it definitely hindered his finish in Norway at the time. But one of Norway's one of the best players you're going to find over there.
Well,
so.
I'm half Norwegian, so already I'm rooting for him.
There you go.
Good for that. So that's your top 10 for MPO. That's kind of the story we have. Let's move over to our FPO division. We can talk about just an absolute dominating performance by Paige Pierce. I know it sounds silly, other than round 3, quote unquote, there's not a lot to talk about. Round 3, she had arguably the second best FPO round in history.
Yeah.
Behind, I think, one of her own rounds. She shot a 10.57 unofficial rating. I don't think it's going to move too much, if at all. But she shot a 12 under par. It was phenomenal. She just was on cruise control, and she just separated herself. She already had a few strokes on everybody, and she stepped down the division's throat, put her foot down on the gas, whatever you want to say.
Said, I'm out of here. She peeled out of here.
Any analogy you want to use, she did it, and just made, we'll get into the media stuff later, but made it a little bit easier for us on the media to focus on the men that final day. It was an impressive victory, to say the least, and to say that Calvin was talking about getting used to new discs if you move manufacturers. And all I wanted to kind of jump in, and I didn't, and say, except for Paige. Paige comes into more or less her first event, and doesn't skip a beat, if not get a little bit more dominant. So congratulations, Paige. I think honestly the surprise of the weekend is Jennifer Allen. She's a local. Mm-hmm. She played very well the week prior in Masters.
Yep.
But she comes here, and I don't believe many people had her probably picked in second place. You could argue top 5 for her.
Yeah.
But the performance she put on, I believe, did she average over 1,000 on the weekend?
Well, as you're looking at that, I'll say,
right
it was.
No, not quite.
Not with her final round.
Her final round was a 947, but 980, 1,018, 1,012, and then a 947. What a performance by Jen Allen, besting our 2 overseas women who everybody was excited to see.
Yeah, and Jen Allen comes into the event with the 5th highest rating. So to see her necessarily take second isn't entirely crazy, but the fact that she got past both Henna and Evelina is pretty incredible, along with Katrina Allen. And they have her by 15 or 20 ratings points. So over a 4-round event, to see her perform the way that she did, certainly a great performance by Jennifer. Of course, congratulations to her. There was no one catching Paige, no matter what level of golf you were really playing. So, as we used to like to say in Wisconsin when Barry Schultz was here, well, I took second. I beat all the mortals, and so the kind of in its own way feels a little bit like a win. You did as best as you could without beating the superhero. So, solid performance by Jennifer Allen, and what's so great about her and her story is, the very next day on Monday, she was teaching kids at a local school and helping out. She goes and punches a clock 9 to 5. She has 3 children that are very active in various sports and activities. So Jen is not one of those that is on tour full time and gets to dedicate full time hours. She gets out and practices, but not nearly to the extent a lot of the other women or professionals get to. So just certainly an all-around great performance by Jennifer Allen.
Third place was Henna Blumros. Fourth place, Evelina Salonen. Fifth place, Katrina Allen. Katrina, I would say, had what felt like a down weekend for her. She didn't perform nearly to the expectation. And not just taking fifth place. You can take fifth place and still be I won't say happy with that result, but her score was, Paige beat her by 27 strokes over 4 rounds. That's not where Kat wants to be.
No, and I think to me that was one of the biggest stories of the weekend, is thinking about when are we going to see that again, if ever. Who Paige was so far in front of everyone, and then in front of even the high-rated notables like a Katrina, to have that much distance between her and Katrina. I think even Paige would tell you, like, if you said to Paige, "Hey, I think you're gonna best, your normal, your number one competitor, you're gonna best her by 27 strokes at the end of this weekend." Even Paige would be like, "No, I'm not." Like, she would never assume that's gonna ever happen. So
no, and I believe that, as we've seen with Paige, she wins the Memorial. We used to joke that the Memorial was Paul Macbeth's event. You can scratch that. The Memorial is Paige Pierce's event. And
even though she doesn't know how many times she's won.
She can't remember. That's a
I.
great problem to have.
I know.
How many times have you won? We're going to have to go back at some point. But here's what I think. I think the Memorial is one of those courses that sets up well for Paige, because there isn't a lot of at Fountain, there isn't a lot of trouble to get into with her drive. You can argue that the putts are difficult, but if Paige is putting like she was, she's dominant. I mean, she crushes. At Vista, her distance is an advantage at Vista, hands down, over the other women. It's just these particular courses, I think, set up very well for her style of play over Katrina Allen. Sixth place, I think I told this to you, Kelly McMoran. I think she's going to be my breakout player of the year. I believe she's due for a very, very good season. Probably, bunching into that top 5 quite a few times this year. I think keep an eye out on her particularly. Haley King, 7th place, tied with Rebecca Cox. Paige Shue, still can't say it without having to stutter at that almost, is 9th place, and 10th place, Kona Star Panis. So congratulations to all of those women who finished in the top 10 and everyone who cashed. I mean, I'll rattle through because there's only 13 that cashed. So we got Missy Gannon at 11th, Jessica Weiss at 12th, and Luque Sandvik, right? Good? Close enough?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, all right. In 13th. I'm no Jamie Thomas.
You're
I'm no
a regular
Robert
Norwegian.
I'm no Robert McCall. I don't get to talk to the players and get them to tell me their names. But congratulations to all 13 women who made the cut and cashed.
All right. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a I don't know if I can spoil it or not, but now I just said it, I'm going to have to.
Because I don't know, so you have to spoil it.
Yeah, actually, I don't even think you know about this. Immediately following the Vegas event, Kona Panis had reached out to me, and she said, hey, I'm wondering if I could take your footage from round 2 where she was on the lead card of Vegas, if I could take all of that footage and I could give you my perspective, or I could put out a video that has just my footage and then my perspective, what I was throwing, what I was thinking, what I was doing. And she said, can I take it and then put it on my Instagram? And I said, better yet, how about we collaborate a little more? You take it, I'll chop it up for you in a slightly nicer version. I'll chop it up for you, hand it over to you. You do the recording, you put it on your Instagram, and then you're cool with me putting it on my YouTube. We need a clever name for it, as I don't know if she's come up with one yet. But she said, I'd like to do this. And I said, amazing. I think this is a great idea.
The
I
Panis
love it.
perspective.
Sure. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was either 24 or 36 hours later, one of those two, she messages me. I said, I agree. Let's do it. Let's get it chopped up for you. We'll try and get this as quickly as we can. But it's a little crazy as I transition from Vegas down to the Memorial as was she. A few hours later, I feel like she messages me and she says, are you watching this Paige Pierce live thing? Like, no, I'm not. I've been preoccupied. Paige is talking about doing exactly what I just asked you about doing. She's talking about doing the exact same thing this year. And I said, all right, well, I still think we need to put it out. It's not like it's a good idea for one and not for another.
Paige's perspective.
Yeah, there you go. You're
I'm going to work on the alliteration.
Paige Pierce's perspective. How's that?
That's too much.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
it.
I don't like it.
So I have chopped it up. I did talk to her about what she would or wouldn't want for graphics and this and that, and what to leave on there and what to take off and whatever. I've managed to now finally, it was a little bit of a hold up on my end, but I did finally get her a chopped up version of it, and I think she's going to be ready to do the commentary on it. This is, of course, Kona, and so look for that. And I don't know if just great minds think alike, meaning those two, of course, not me. And but I do like the idea, and I think it has room to expand, obviously, beyond these two women. It just sounds like it could be an all-around really good idea. in something that you might see of now. So I hope I'm not spoiling it that Kona wants to do it. Just today, she did download it, and I think we'll probably have it for me as early as tomorrow. But I know she was a little bit worried and like, oh, is it going to look like we're copying? I said, no, not at all. Technically, we can timestamp this. You shared the idea with me first, but I think it's going to be great nonetheless. So look for that to come out soon. And then also real quick, I'll give a plug, another one for the memorial. As thanks to Paige Pierce, I showed up on Sunday afternoon getting ready for live, or was just pulling in all the equipment to show up to Duke's. And I spent about 20 minutes driving around looking for a parking spot. I was so frustrated.
That parking lot can get pretty tight.
And you're not supposed to park there if you're part of the event. So I actually obliged to that, and I parked across the street in like a random parking lot.
Handicap spot.
No, in a random parking lot of a closed business. And then as I was walking over, carrying all this stuff, Paige says, oh, did you see? Steve Rico's, they're in a playoff. I was like, what? So I grabbed my camera. I ran over to hole one.
And this was before we went live.
Yes, this is right before we went live. Well, an hour or so before it. But I grabbed my camera, went over to hole one, and there we had KJ Nybo of Denmark, along with Steve Rico, Southern California. And they were about to go and get into a playoff, sudden death playoff, starting on hole one. And I filmed it. And then today, it did not take me long, so I quickly threw it together. Spoiler alert, it goes more than one hole, but less than 8. And I ran over there and filmed it, put it out on YouTube, and it's all available for everybody. Let's just say it was nothing short of incredible. So
I watched
it
tonight after dinner, sat on the couch. Someone had posted something like, oh, did you see this? This is awesome. And I'm like, whatever. And I watched it. I was like, well, wow, that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah. It was a great battle. A lot of fun, good high energy, but yet it's short enough to consume it relatively quickly and easily. So I hope that you guys enjoy that as well. And other following updates, if we're going to go all media on this for a second, I had a conversation with, I'm going to keep it a secret who it is, but a conversation with a local pro to talk about the final commentary for Maricopa to get laid down.
A local Maricopa pro? A local Milwaukee pro?
We'll say a golfer pro that is not local to Arizona, but kind of semi-tours. Is going to help with commentary for Maricopa. And then I think Nate Perkins and Paige Pierce will soon be attacking the Thailand's Samui Swine commentary, which videos are ready to go for that. So
excellent. There was really only one other event this particular weekend that really stood out, and that was the 2020 Old City Open, sponsored by Dynamic Disc, over in Knoxville, Tennessee. No surprise, Chris Dickerson takes this one down by...
The C-Dick Slayer.
No, there was no Slayer.
He's the Slayer. The C-Dick Slayer.
That doesn't make any sense.
He's the C-Dick Slayer.
Like he's slaying the rest of the field? I feel like the C-Dick Slayer would be someone that would beat
him. No, I don't know.
I don't like that.
I don't care.
That's fine. Chris Dickerson wins by 2 strokes over Brandon Brown, tied with Sam Lee at 19 under par. Chris obviously shot a 21. Jamie Veladiaz shot an 18, tied with Will Schustrick and Chris Orrick. Rounding out the cash was Tony Mo Rice and Ryan Zesty O'Hara. So congratulations. On the FPO side, there was 5 women. Heather Young takes this one down, besting the field by 7 strokes over Christine Jennings. So those were the only 2 that cashed. But congratulations to everyone who always competes. We love you all, and I'm jealous because I don't get to play as much as I'd like to.
Wow, you're so friendly with those.
Well,
Very nice of you.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it does feel weird. Of course, there's other events, and not everyone can travel to sunny Arizona to take it all in. But it feels weird when you think about all the other events that aren't.
Was this the event, or was it last weekend that Chris Dickerson got 2 aces back to back?
It must have been the weekend before.
Maybe it was the weekend
before.
before.
Know that happened.
If the board can help
I've
me
seen
out.
a lot of posts about aces about him, but I didn't know he got 2 of them. I think you're wrong. I'm going to call it.
Or maybe it was the same hole twice. Maybe it was 2 aces in one round. Maybe it's back-to-back aces. I don't know. Someone can go out there and take a look. But I know, I swear to God, it was 2 aces, Chris Dickerson. I thought it was back-to-back holes, but so And anyway,
I didn't hear that.
So much stuff came flying through this weekend, and I didn't have a chance. We'll talk again. I told Terry I'd like to save the media breakdown until the after show, so we can kind of really get into some nitty gritty about it. Someone on the board asks if you were able to discuss with some of the women. It's back-to-back aces.
Wow!
Thank you, Sneaker Wizards, much appreciated, and the DGB.
I believe them. I just didn't believe you.
Darn it. I don't blame you by any means. Were you able to talk to the women at all about the change in time? I know you mentioned it with Paige during her interview. Were you able to talk to them about maybe their feelings on the change in the Pro Tour timing?
Yeah, I feel like I'll echo what some of the other people within maybe even the tour were talking about, in that it seemed as if most people have been good with it. I think there are a few women that have understandably have become very regimented.
Yep. To morning rounds.
To the morning rounds, and they kind of feel like they're a little lost, or it just really is just such a massive change of schedule. And I can understand that. For the last 2 or 3 or 4 years, they've been going off very early, and then that's kind of, what kind of sets their schedule for the day and for the weekend. And now going off essentially as late as you could be going off. I didn't hear overall negativity. I heard people saying they're either adjusting or they're okay with it, and they have to find that balance, or just the right balance of their time and what they're going to do. But I didn't hear anyone say, I absolutely would want this to go back to the way it was. I didn't hear that from anyone.
Okay, well, that's good. It'll be a learning curve throughout the year. I did, obviously, during Paige's interview, she had said, we've always, for the past year or two, seen Paige out on the course after her round, usually following around the lead card or the second card, taking pictures and just doing a lot of media stuff on her own. So it kind of makes me think, like, what is she filling her time with during the day now? Is she going to follow lower cards? It doesn't seem like is interesting to her, unless it's a close friend of hers, like a Perkins or a Conrad is starting earlier in the day. But I don't know.
As on the board where Hannah had said that she was bored waiting for the tee times. Yeah, again, I understand it is a very, very drastic change for them, who have sometimes been getting up at. I think I recall Jessica Weiss talking about getting up at 5 or 4 or 5 or 6 in the morning and being ready to go, to sometimes be on your tee by 7:30, and so I can understand how that has been drastic for them, but hopefully everyone can adapt as best as they can.
I'm sure they'll get used to it.
And we'll continue to get feedback on it. Now, I think it's a fair statement that if I'll make up a number and say 80% of our pro women that are on the tour came to Jeff Spring in the Pro Tour and came to them after Waco and said, all right, we've collectively gone through this for 2 events, and as a group, the majority, whatever percentage that is, well, I know that's one more than half, but the majority of us have agreed we don't like a later tee time. There may be a new conversation that gets had that may or may not dictate whether or not the Pro Tour will say adheres to that suggestion or feedback or not. I feel like they would at that point. The question is, will the women come to that conclusion? I don't think so.
I don't think they will, because it feels, unfortunately for the women, it comes down to 2 options. You either tee very early in the morning, or you tee after the men. Now, you could possibly try to break up the men in the morning, but logistically, I don't know how well that would work out. If you say, all right, the bottom 10 MPO cards are going to go off in the morning. The women are going to be from 10 to 12, we'll say. And then the men will tee off again at 2 instead of 1:30, 2:30 or 3 o'clock, or whatever the timing works out as. I think that just doesn't feel right to break up a division, but ultimately what we're saying is those bottom cards anyway, the first day it could be anybody, but after that, those cards are probably not in the cash. They're probably, at that point, if you're in one of the bottom, I would say, 7 to 8 cards after the first day, you're probably not crawling out of that to cash. Not saying you can't, but the odds are against you. So I personally enjoy it. I personally like to see the women in the afternoon. They get to deal with different conditions than they're used to, because in a lot of courses, a lot of places early in the season, we saw them run into snow or very cold weather. You're going to run into that a little less in the afternoon, but you might run into more winds. The winds might pick up in the afternoon. We don't usually see higher winds in the morning than we do in the afternoon at some of these courses. Now, that's a generalization, of course, but
yeah. And then another thing that they typically, if you're just going by the law of averages, typically they're not going to be on the course when the ground is still wet from the dew or from something from the night before as well. That's something else that I think they got accustomed to when they're out there at warming up at 6 or 6:30 or 7 in the morning, or having a 7:30 or 8:30 round. You're far more likely to have some kind of dew or precipitation still on the ground from the night before, versus if they're going to be going out at 3 o'clock. Now, I understand it could rain in any afternoon, but
could rain in the morning.
Again, the likelihood is they're not going to have to be dealing with wet conditions as often by going off in the afternoon. So I guess we'll see how things continue to play out. And then there is a conversation about flow with the women playing after the men. If there is any hiccups or play that takes a little longer, that will not in any way impact the MPO field, which then kind of stacks up and creates a domino effect for the entire day.
We saw this is the first year at the Memorial where we did not have a backup. I feel like it's the first year we didn't have a backup at, well, what traditionally were, I think, 7 and 8. Or 8 and 9. At hole 8. Yeah, 7. Okay. They changed all the holes, and now in my head, it's hard to get used to them.
It's still 8 this year. It was 8 last year.
Was it?
It was 8 the year before, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, no backup. And I don't know if that's because we moved the FPO in the afternoon. I don't know if it's just better timing with spreading out the cards, because the top 2 cards went off at like 20 minutes between each other.
Mm-hmm. I think it has more to do with that.
It very well could have to do with that, but I felt like it cleaned everything up in general. So that might not be the case in the future, but we have seen when the women do have to play some of the longer tees that the men do, some of those can slow the entire field down.
Sure.
And it's hard to say that without sounding like a jerk, but unfortunately, it's just the distance that they throw. They take longer on the holes. It can create a backup, but just like the bottom of the men's field can do the same thing. So it'll be interesting. We talk a little bit about PDGA news real quick. Speaking of the women, the PDGA Women's Global event returns May 9th. So if you are a female player, or if you're a male player and just want to get someone that out there, please go ahead and check out the Women's Global event. Like I said, May 9th. It's out on the PDGA website. You can take a look. There's an article out there giving you all the information, which I have not read yet, so I'm not going to bother to try to guess on it. But please go out, support the Women's Global event. We'll probably talk about it more as it comes up nearer to the future. The other thing that I wanted to talk about real quick is the 2021 PDGA National Tour is now open to a bid process. So if you are one of those people, I'm gonna Bobby Brown
stare at
keep it
him.
real. All right, right there, the camera.
Stare him down, Johnny. Give it to him straight.
If you're one of those people that complains, how come my state doesn't have a national tour? This is your chance. Right now, get your club together, get your course together, put in a bid, get your funding, get all that taken care of. I don't want to hear it next year when you say, well, how come Montana doesn't have a national tour? Because you have one course. But beside that, actually, I don't know how many courses Montana has. But either way, please go out, make a bid. If you feel like you've got an awesome course or a great club, the PDGA is always looking for new places. They enjoy the fresh blood. They will help you out. Even if you don't get it, put the bid in so that they know you're interested possibly for future years. Let's make this happen. Everybody always talks about They love some of the courses we play, but it's great to see new courses every year. So please go out and do that. That bidding process is open. The new RFP has a July 1st deadline.
And that goes along with, this goes hand in hand with any of the other majors or bids the bid process for any majors is maybe what I'm trying to say. Just as Johnny alluded to, a lot of people always say, well, it's not fair. Our area doesn't have a big event. Well, your area has to put in a bid to host a big event, and it has to be better than the other area's bids. They don't, excuse me, it's not intentional when they say, oh, let's hand out all these bids because we really just like that spot. They do it because that was the best bid for that given event. So that's how you get a bid or a big event in your area, is by having the best bid.
That's it, Terry. That's all the news I got.
I got news.
What kind of news do you have?
It's not major news, and I don't know all the details, so I'll fill you in.
So that's what Smashbox is good for. Not major news and only half the information. Bring it on, Terry Miller.
No, what I did see on the socials, namely Facebook yesterday, one Holly Finley jumping in on the Pro Touring vehicle game, and it looks like she has picked herself up a pretty serious ride, and I'll read from her Facebook because that's where all the news comes from, folks. She states, there comes a time in life when you need to choose now or never. The time is now. Hashtag Tour Life just got an upgrade this year. Excited to throw again in the warmer weather. Texas is my first stop this week, preparing for the Waco Open. And then she has a bunch of other hashtags. And she then has a picture of
is it like a Chrysler Sprinter kind of?
Or I think that's a Mercedes logo.
Mercedes Sprinter. Sorry, I'm going to see it from here.
Okay. And she has a picture of a Mercedes Sprinter type van.
You want to know?
So.
You want to know a funny story from when I was a kid?
Probably not, but go for it.
Real quick. It was like 5th grade or something like that. We had to do an art project on like the first week of school. And I'm not an artistic person, as everybody knows.
Nope.
So I'm kind of watching all the other kids. And I thought I saw somebody else do like a peace sign. So I drew a peace sign. Someone comes up to me and goes, oh, you're a really big fan of Mercedes, because I didn't know how to make a peace sign. I was just had no clue, and I was just like, oh yeah, totally. Like, just totally played it off because I didn't have any idea. But that's what the symbol reminded me of. Every time I see that symbol, it brings me back to like 5th grade and me making a horrible art project because I'm not artistic.
Wow.
So.
And funny enough, I have a mild tie to that myself. That I rented from Sixt Rental. And they apparently only deal in premium or at least nicer cars.
Look at you.
And sure enough, so some people gave me a hard time this last week because for the last 10 days or 12 days, I had a Mercedes. I don't even know what it was. Some Mercedes car.
On Smashbox's dime.
On Smashbox's dime.
What the?
And it was almost a full $100 cheaper than any other rental agency for that 12 days. You're going to win me over every time, Sixt Rental, when you have premium cars and you're cheaper than everyone else. The only part that made me nervous is the phone call I missed from Sixt Rental yesterday, and they left a voicemail saying, yeah, we are just wondering what you're doing with the rental. It shows that you are a full day late, and we'd love for you to let us know if you want to extend your rental or not. And I actually did call them back. I said, yeah, I've got a receipt right here that shows I turned it in Sunday night in Phoenix per my reservation. Got it in Vegas, returned in Phoenix. They're like, oh, okay, well, we'll update our notes. I was like, okay. No, I still don't have your Mercedes.
I stole your Mercedes. License to ride. Speaking of Holly Finley, and we'll get off that little side jag. Speaking of Holly Finley going to Waco, it brings up the last probably point we want to talk about here on the show tonight. Sarah Hokum, along with, it appears, Holly Finley, skipping the first few events and making their debut over in Waco at the more wooded courses. That I think Sarah Hokum had made a post something along the lines of saying that these courses just don't interest her. They don't suit her game. She's not making any effort to make it there. And we've heard Holly say the same thing in the past, that just distance courses or open courses give her zero interest. She prefers a wooded, more challenging course. I'll say more challenging in quotes there. It's a different challenge. But that we're going to probably see I don't want to say a more solid, but a fuller field of the top 20 women in Waco than we saw at the previous two events.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, as I clicked on Jennifer Allen's name, who had finished second, she specifically will not be in Waco, as I alluded to earlier, her not being on tour full time. But I do want to take a quick look at the Waco FPO field. It is 27 women deep, and I'm going to do a quick sort by rating to see who we will have there. Paige Pierce, Katrina Allen, Hannah Blumrose, Sarah Hokum, Evelina Salonen, Valerie Mundahano, Paige Shue, Lisa Fakis. So I think the names that we're gaining are Holly Finley, like you mentioned, who I now see on the list there too as well. Heather Young, Lisa Fakis, and Sarah Hokum are all the names that were, kind of our highest rated women that maybe we missed out on having in the last two weekends. Those are the women that I see added to the list that will make it that much more competitive. And we've seen to paraphrase Paige Pierce, she's never seen someone carve lines like Sarah Hokum out on that Waco course. So
we've seen it sets up very well for forehand players. Jeremy Colling has a knack or a history with that course, always shooting very well there and winning 2 of the last 3 years.
Yeah, something like that. All right, I don't know if I have anything else in terms of news or excitement or other odds and ends. As you said, in the after show, we can talk about a few other random goodies, maybe break down, talk a little bit more about what we saw from the media perspective of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Obviously, a huge opening weekend, not only having all the post-productions that were there providing the great content, also the real official, we'll say, debut of the Disc Golf Network, SmashBoxxTV, helping being the backbone of the live broadcast, along with a few new cameramen and new segments and pieces that were provided. We had the consistent U-Disc, who's always there being wonderful, unless you're Calvin. So we have all of those things. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about those as we move into the after show. And as always in the after show, we hope and expect you guys to give us a little
before we go to the after
goodies
show
from the board. Yeah.
Can we show a quick video from Disc Golf Nerd?
I think we could do that.
I think before we close out the show, I want to thank Disc Golf Nerd with Paige Pierce doing as well as she's doing this particular event. He sent us a review of this decade, yes, the Paige Pierce Fierce.
Okay,
are you a fan of that name, the Fierce?
Be honest. It's funny. I saw a discussion about it earlier today, and there was one response that touched my heart when someone said to someone else who was complaining about the name, and they replied, which is something I would reply with, "Oh, really? What's the name of your disc?" But in all honesty, it's quite public knowledge to her and to the rest of the world. I am a Paige Pierce fan. I think she's a wonderful human.
I've got signed discs back here from her.
I don't like the name. I don't. I understand where it came from. I understand the thought process, all of that stuff.
Of course.
I personally don't care for it. I'm not going to let that get in the way of my my friendship or admiration for her skill sets and her as a person. I personally don't care for that name. But it's apparently a great putter. Everybody says it is.
Well, watching her putt and
exactly.
Zoe Andyke, who used it as well this weekend, I think both of them had a pretty good weekend. So let's take a look at Disc Golf Nerd. We'll close out the show with Disc Golf Nerd doing the Paige Pierce Fierce putter review. We will see you guys in the after show.
What's up, Smashies? I'm the Disc Golf Nerd, and this time we're taking a look at the brand new Paige Pierce Fierce by Discraft. Very comfortable putter in the hand. I love the feel of this thing. It is definitely rounded and comfortable. It's similar to a Roach or a Luna, but considerably lower profile. I think part of why it feels that way is that it has a flattened underside edge. Provides a nice surface for your hand to rest on and your putting grip, and all in all feels great in the hand. The plastic is pretty similar to like a Pro D plastic, but it's definitely firmer than the average Pro D disc you will run into, but it is similar in terms of durability and overall feel in terms of the surface of the plastic to Pro D, but it definitely has a little bit firmer feel overall, lower flexibility, and has a nice feel coming out of the hand. A lot of our professional players prefer a stiffer, firmer plastic because they feel as though it's a little bit more consistent in the way it exits your hand, and that definitely seems to make sense to me. In flight, this thing is definitely understable. As a thrower, it's very straight. Kind of want to give it maybe a touch of hyzer and let it flip up flat. Right out of the box, it's definitely got some understability to it. If you throw it flat, it will definitely want to move to the right, but it doesn't necessarily turn and burn either, but definitely noticeable natural turn in the flight of this disc. Inside the circle, it's the same way. You will see a little bit of a flip up to it. Basically just fly super straight all the way into the basket with a pretty minimal fade as it slows down. Really nice disc from longer range because it can kind of float out there. Unless you're trying to play for more of a hyzer at the end of your putt, then it's not really necessarily the best option. Definitely more of a floaty, straight at it type putter from my experience. I really like this thing as an approach disc and a short range driver for those flip up shots. It works great for that. If you want a disc that will move soft to the right naturally off the tee, this disc is definitely capable of doing that as well. The flight of this disc almost feels like it's already somewhat broken in the way it behaves, where it stands up quite easily and will move soft to the right, but doesn't necessarily want to just completely flip over all the way down to the ground either accidentally. If you want it to hold a turnover though, it'll do that very easily and fly super straight on approach and short drives as long as you do not overpower it. Inside the circle, point and shoot straight into the basket, good glide, and it has enough understability that it will kind of flip up. I think this would also be a phenomenal beginner disc and great disc to give to a brand new player, maybe kids or anybody who's looking to get into the game. It's got a very comfortable feel and it's very easy to get it to fly straight all the way with low power. That is my review on the Page Pierce Fierce. Thank you to Sun King for sending me this disc to test and review, and thank you so much to Smashbox for having me be a part of the show. If you'd like to see the full-length review of this disc and over 200 others, just head over to my YouTube channel, Disc Golf Nerd, and I'll check you later. Cheers.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the Smashbox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Smashbox TV podcast 287
After show.
My voice is almost spot on.
It's
again.
getting better. Like it still sounds raspy. Not as bad as it was day one when we heard you. Days 2 and 3 I felt were a little better, but still kind of mediocre. Day 4 of the broadcast, it just sounded like you just had a little rasp to it like you do now. I don't think your voice really has gotten much better in the last 2 to 3 days, but it's not as bad as when you first started.
Yeah, it was
that was rough.
I'm telling you, no.
It's not Corona.
Probably not coronavirus.
COVID-19.
But I guess this could be said of a lot of things. I hate to break a heart or two out there, but it's not original if you think I have corona. Unfortunately, there's a lot of...
Did you have a corona this weekend at all?
I had no coronas,
okay.
But a lot of people know I travel, and then that's...
And you traveled to Thailand, Southeast Asia, so I get it.
I kind of do, but you're not the first one to say it.
It's not original. I know.
I'm gonna really challenge myself to not go after the low hanging fruit when it comes to those jokes. Uh-oh. What are we holding on for?
The recording stopped because...
Let's just start deleting stuff.
There we go. All right, we're back.
C:, format.
Okay, we're back.
Okay,
the streaming never stopped. So, but the recording, I ran out of hard drive space because I still had all the memorial stuff on there, which I've uploaded. I just forgot to remove it from the hard drive.
All right. Well, this after show is brought to you in part by Sandy Point Resort and Disc Golf Ranch. Check them out at sandypt.com. Mike and Michelle Cousins graciously, very graciously reached out to me after day one of our broadcast this weekend. And after some back and forth conversation, they insisted on helping me out with a legitimate problem I have, which was a weird white wire that came sticking out of my shirt and providing challenges to me during the broadcast. So thank you, Mike and Michelle, as they graciously offered to support a little bit of a technology upgrade, and it was awesome throughout the weekend.
I found out about this today, and you told me that when we were on the phone earlier today. I remember watching you during the interviews, and I kept thinking, like, where is his earbud? Did he pull it out? Because during the interview, sometimes, so you don't hear the chatter.
You talking.
Me talking, or Gary, or whomever. Doing work behind the scenes.
About dumb stuff while I'm trying to have an interview, and you're talking about really stupid stuff.
Not usually. Usually it's important. Sometimes it's dumb. I'm not going to lie, but usually important and valid. You'll pull the earplug out, and I'll sometimes see it dangle. And I'm like, oh, God, he doesn't have, like, I wonder what he did. Like, I just don't see it. Knowing that you didn't have a pair of Bluetooth earphones, I know most of what your equipment is and what even your personal tech is, and I was like, wow, that's really weird. And then today you tell me, sure enough, that you had a pair of Bluetooth headphones,
which I still had to pull out one time because I had a left Bluetooth headphone in it. And the little behind the scenes is when we are, on Nate and Val, for instance, in the booth, and then I am setting up to then have an interview with Calvin Heinberg, for instance, we're on another camera, and then Johnny has to count me in, and he said, all right, we're coming to you in the field in 5 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever. So I have to be listening for that audible cue to then know when roughly the camera is going to be turned on and we're going to be coming to me. So I have to have something in my ear to let me know that. And then sometimes, as we were just saying, Johnny will then proceed to ramble on with other cameramen or people in the booth or whatever. And I'm trying to not only hear what Calvin is saying to me, but I also have to be thinking about whatever my next question is going to be, because I don't think about those ahead of time. And I've got someone nonstop in my ear. And the worst part is, as many of you know, I'm also deaf in my right ear. So my right ear isn't hearing Calvin either. And so it really provides some legitimate frustration. So if you ever see me rip something out of my ear and maybe, punch someone with it or throw it, it's because I'm sick of listening to this clown while I'm trying to conduct usually a very important interview while we're trying to wrap up the day or whatever the case might be. So again, Apple sucked when they did it, and now Android sucks when they do it. The fact that they take the charging port and you, without buying an adapter or a dongle or a splitter or something, I couldn't plug in both headphones and have power on my phone, hence moving to the Bluetooth headset, which I think is going to provide to be a much better solution in the long run. But it provided for additional challenge this weekend. So thank you, Sandy Point Resort and Disc Golf Ranch. You're going to get a few more shout-outs. I really appreciate it.
I was going to shout out their event.
But
Sandy
don't
Point.
bother.
Don't bother because it's sold out in like 14 minutes.
Yeah, so Sandy Point Resort, as many of you know, hosts the annual
season finale practically.
They host the annual team tournament, which is a favorite of so many people, including us. We really enjoy that. That usually takes place in May or June, and then at the end of the year they host the Northwoods Open, and that is expanded to upwards of 250 people. But this year, it's in record time sold out in a matter of minutes. So don't try and go play up there at the event because it's sold out. But,
it's sold out. But if
great humans and great people.
If you want to go up there and just get a cabin, on an off weekend and play, great course. Tell them that SmashBoxx sent you. I guarantee you, A, you'll be treated great. B, it's a phenomenal place to be, and you just can't. It is one of our favorite places. Just it's so much fun.
SandyPT.com, one of the first ever pay-to-play courses in Wisconsin, but also the resort atmosphere where there's 27 holes of disc golf. So you get out of your cabin and you're already on the disc golf course. It's quite incredible. And I know a lot of our viewers have already been there and can attest to that. So
two things I want to talk about in the after show, both media related. First, I'm going to put you in an awkward position.
Oh, no.
You had an interview.
What are you going to do? Keep talking in my ear while I'm trying to talk to someone else?
I could. You don't like to hear, ready, camera 4, take, camera 4, push in. Ready, 1, take 1. Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Oh, no, I had him. Oh, man, I had him in my fantasy league. Oh, no, I pulled him last week. Oh,
there was no talk like that this particular weekend because I didn't really.
All of the above.
But anyway, so this weekend you did an after show. I believe it was Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Ricky and his nutritionist on the show. And on your show, and I didn't get it, honestly, I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
We were done with the broadcast. I went upstairs. We were watching some TV with the kids, and I saw you went live. And so I wanted to watch it, but I also wanted to actually spend some family time. And so I only got to kind of briefly watch just for like the first 5 or 7 minutes, and I had to hang up and actually, interact with my family. Ugh. But that particular interview has gone disc golf viral. I've seen it referenced in a lot of places, and now we're obviously talking about Ricky and his health, his nutritionist. What was your perspective or your take? Did you know ahead of time that you were going to get both of them? Did you? Obviously, I don't care about particularly your opinion on the whole situation.
Oh,
because it doesn't matter. All that matters is Ricky.
Mm-hmm.
But walk me through exactly how that worked.
I'll say earlier in the week, Ricky had reached out to me and he said, "Hey, my nutritionist is going to be here for this week. Would you like to have us on the show to talk about what's been going on with my Lyme disease and recovery and all of that stuff?" And I said, "Absolutely. That sounds great. I don't see a downside to that. It clearly hindered and ended his season early last year. It clearly was a very hot topic. And without trying to sensationalize anything, I just figured an update seemed very appropriate, especially as we're here kicking off the 2020 season." And so we went back and forth for a few days. I wasn't feeling well, and I didn't do the live shows for a couple nights that I was originally kind of planning on doing them. And Saturday night rolled around, and he said, "Yeah, I'll be here. I'd love to do it." So Ricky and his nutritionist, Drew, who happens to live in our area,
here in Milwaukee,
he doesn't live very far from us. I can't say that we really communicate too often. We met each other a few years ago, and I'm never here, so I can't say that we have an incredibly close relationship. But I've known him, and as he said on the podcast, I actually picked him up once randomly from the airport to help him out when he was at the airport without a ride. So they joined and immediately started walking me through the process and the steps of what Ricky was doing, what Drew's experience was with Lyme. He personally has had Lyme disease himself. He talked about how he combated it and what he did in order to fight it and to deal with it. And then they continued to just kind of go along that path. And I'll say, it's not really fair that that some people have posted to YouTube asking and saying, "Why did you," I'll use their phrasing, "give this quack a platform?" And I have to be just totally transparent and say, I know nothing about Lyme disease other than now learning a little bit about the inflammation that it causes and
disease that
I'll say the grogginess
that attacks the joints and grogginess.
Yeah,
and
that's about the extent of what I've ever known about Lyme disease. And they reinforce that, but I'm in no position to call a nutritionist or any form of doctor really a quack because I know nothing.
Mhm.
And I don't feel like it's even fair for me to now had he or anyone showed up in a I'll say in a tinfoil hat and been showing me all sorts of what I truly felt were crazy. I guess I think of flat Earth arguments maybe, like then maybe, but I have no recourse. I have really no ground to stand on to know whether or not he's 100% spot on or if he's 100% wrong. I simply don't know. How would I? They did address specifically saying things like, no, we're not just using crystals or
and oils
or things like that. I feel like they attempted, or they did, hit some of the rumors and some of the naysayers head on with some of the responses. I appreciated that. And I felt as if, for the little I do know or did know, I felt like I asked all of the pertinent questions. And I guess that's my job. I always used to say I'm not a journalist. Now you
kind of are.
I've been kind of
sadly.
accused that I am now. So I guess I have to.
Whether you
accept
like
that
it or
role.
not, Terry, we've pulled you into the journalism pool.
Exactly. So I feel like, and when I was asking so many of those questions, that particular on that podcast or show, they were genuinely from the heart in the sense that I don't know, and of course, there's a lot of people that didn't receive it well,
of course,
and or just are what I'll say is, I think you can love or hate his message, and I'll be selfish for a second and say, I don't know how you can be so mad at me for quote unquote giving him a platform, because here's what you wouldn't do if you agreed with him, you wouldn't be saying that it was wrong for me to give him a platform. It's funny that what it opened my eyes to is people that say you shouldn't even give this person a platform for something are always the ones who disagree with them.
Of course, you can extrapolate
and
that
that's
to
generic.
extremes.
Yeah,
of
that's
course.
a generic statement.
If you brought somebody on the show, or we brought somebody on the show and sat and entertained them while they gave us some sort of racist screed, and we just sat there and go, okay, all right, that's how you feel. This is, we maybe, obviously we wouldn't agree and this and that, but gave them a platform to sit and spew their garbage. I can understand that argument. I don't think this particular thing falls into that category by any means. This is an adult, Ricky Wysocki, who is choosing to deal with his own health in his particular way. A lot of people won't agree with it, but ultimately you are there to help facilitate and help inform his fans and the disc golf community in general about the decision and the reasoning.
Yeah, and
I don't think that this doesn't fall into anything hateful. You can have your own personal ideas about the way Ricky has gone about this.
Mm-hmm.
That is legitimate, but I think this isn't black and white. There is a gray scale here that this particularly falls into.
Well, and that's where I feel like I'll say I'm no Joe Rogan in this case, where I feel like the times I have watched Joe Rogan, he's very versed in a lot of subjects, and that he can ask maybe more pointed or more specific questions that would challenge a guest. I couldn't do that in this particular case because I have no knowledge of Lyme or of clearly of healthy nutrition. I'll be the first to admit that. Like, there's just a lot of things that I couldn't rightfully challenge because I don't know. And that's my main perspective. And to take this to another point, I've said here on the show, and I've said it on Facebook numerous times, I would love to have the gentleman from Hawaii. I don't believe I'm missing his name, but the gentleman from Hawaii who constantly talks about the disc golf course there, so on and so forth. I would love to have him on, and to use the phrasing, I'd give him a platform because I want to know and understand where in the world he is coming from, even though me and some others are would constitute him as possibly crazy. I still want to get his side out so we can at least say we've heard his side, and then you can pass judgment whether or not you agree or disagree with him. And I'm the first to say I would like him to get his side out. So I was thinking of that as to, an
analogy or
as
parallel.
to how, I mean, my job is to hopefully ask some questions, to find some answers for you. Like you said, whether you agree with the answers or not, that's going to be for you to determine and for Ricky to live with or not. But that's how I took the entire interview. I know Zach has been very active in posting follow-ups and questions. Zach, who's on our board right now, and he's saying Ricky admitted to saying he had a leg injury right now, or a knee injury, and did he say it's not related to Lyme? Ricky did state that he doesn't feel that it's related to his Lyme disease. And is Ricky buying supplements, so to speak, directly from Drew? I did not specifically ask that. Sometimes one could argue that's not an appropriate question even to ask. I mean, whether you do or don't get into financials.
Yeah.
I understand people would want to know that now. It didn't cross my mind at the time, but
the worry,
they made it sound like Ricky's getting advice and is getting help from Drew, and part of their agreement, it seems as if, is Ricky said he's giving Drew advice in disc golf. Now, if that's a 1-for-1, I don't know. Is Ricky buying $10,000 of supplements from Drew a week? I don't know. Is that for us to know? I don't know. How when Hulk Hogan goes and sees his shrink and or nutritionist, do we know what those financial interactions are? We don't. I don't know if they're our business. So, not that I couldn't ask. You're right, but that was not something that crossed my mind.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've officially clarified anything or not, but
I just wanted, because I have seen it in a lot of places. I've seen it in it was on Reddit, it was on Facebook, I saw it on Discord, and I saw it on Disc Golf Course Review. A lot of people referencing or talking about it. Some people asking, and again, I know very little about the situation, but people asking, well, is Ricky getting taken advantage of? Is Ricky, there's all sorts of questions. Or, people are saying, guess what? Not everybody wants to go by, Western medicine, and that's, and again, Ricky is an adult that is working with himself, and he has trusted people. The way I look at it, is it the route I would personally take? More than likely not, but Ricky is an adult who has people he trusts, and he is working with this gentleman, and that's all I can leave it at. And I think you did from what I understand, because I haven't watched the whole thing, so I'm going to assume that you did a pretty good job at least giving that a platform and letting that knowledge be distributed amongst Ricky, his fans, his sponsors, the people at the event, everybody that wants to pay attention to that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it was very enlightening for me, because, like I said, I didn't know a lot of that information that was shared with me, and whether or not I agree or disagree in this case, I feel like absolutely doesn't matter.
No.
The route that he's taking, like you said, it's his route.
Mm-hmm.
We can be cautious, we can have our reservations about it, or we could be excited about it, and everywhere in between.
Well,
but right now, what I think for how Ricky handles his health, I'm sure Ricky's not concerned about what I think.
He played pretty well the first couple days. So.
Yeah, and clearly his knee was, was bothering him. I think he was pretty open about that, and he was also open about the fact that I forget doxycycline, something or other.
Amoxicillin?
No, it's not amoxicillin. It starts with a D. He said he was taking it for the infection in his finger, and that wasn't healing the infection in his finger, and he was taking that already prior to even being diagnosed with the Lyme, and so he felt as if that, whatever that was, wasn't effective for treating his Lyme in the first place, if I'm paraphrasing him correctly. So
Okay.
again, it's his path, and I understand a lot of you are really mad about it
And passionate.
and very passionate about it. I think maybe more of you have PhDs than I realize. I don't know what it is, and I understand that some of that uproar, but dare I say, it is what it is. I think a lot of people make a lot of really bad decisions, and unfortunately, I just keep my mouth shut.
Sometimes.
I see him every day, like a lot.
Sometimes you keep your mouth shut. Sometimes you don't.
Sometimes I do. You're right.
Here's what I do want from everybody. Shut up. I know it sounds rude. Just let it done. Let it be done. Ricky's made his decision. He's going to do what he's going to do. Unless you know him personally and can literally talk to him face to face, I don't think there's any more advantage or disadvantage at this point to drudging up the conversation. I think there was a value in it months ago, bringing awareness to it, saying, this or that, here are the options, here's what you can. But at this point, said and done, we will see how things turn out. I don't think that constantly bringing it up and attacking or defending is really going to do anybody any good. So
yeah, not at this point.
So at this point. So let's talk a little bit about the media. Bit.
First I have to brag for a moment.
Okay. Please be my guest. This is the after show.
And this will segue into the media.
Sure it will.
I had the pleasure and the honor of meeting with our 2018 Pro Masters, female Pro Masters, FP40 world champion Kimberly Gianola tonight.
Oh, you did?
Yes. I
know she's in town. I don't know what she's in town for.
She's in town for work. She had an extended, almost, I don't know if it's 8 or 10 or 12 days, whatever it is.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
She's in Milwaukee area. She had reached out, and she knew that I was actually going out to Vegas and the Memorial, and then reached out and said that she was still around. I had suggested a few places for her to visit while she was here in town for this extended time, including the Safe House, including maybe checking out the Harley Museum, the Calatrava, the art museum, which was just an American Idol, by the way.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. That's where they filmed, I don't know, one of the recent American Idols.
Fun things to do.
Yeah, so, but I had a little time before getting to you and coming over to the house tonight. Her and I met up. We went to Moe's Irish Pub and had a beverage and each had something to eat. And it was just great because, and here's the main segue, she was so actively involved with playing tennis and watching tennis and being a tennis enthusiast. And then as we tried to analyze and compare and contrast tennis media to what we're seeing here in disc golf media, and seeing as someone who's been such an FPO media advocate, both her and Nova, they've been such FPO media advocates, getting her insights and opinions about what was attempted this last weekend was very enlightening to me. So I had a great time, and also I feel like I learned some great insights because she had informed me it's at the biggest events is when the tennis, and I'll admit I know almost nothing about tennis, but she had said that it's really at the biggest events is when we see a little bit of that parity between women and men's professional tennis coverage, and almost like this weekend, direct flip-flopping. As in, you'll see one, and then maybe you'll see some of the other, or you'll see some of the other, and then you'll see this one, or it may follow to wherever the better story or the match point is. And I thought that was interesting. She said, otherwise, all the other events that take place all year, they're in totally different areas, different cities, different tournaments. But for the majors, that's when you see the men and the women in the same place, and you see the coverage can be, I don't want to say more equal, but it can be more interchangeable.
Okay.
So that ties into the media attempt this weekend. So thank you for the time and the insight, Kimberly.
Well, good, Kimberly. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, well, we don't like you. That was not much of a secret.
Wow.
We openly discussed that.
Well, I'm okay with that. Whatever. I don't need to be liked.
So the media, new concept this weekend.
From everything all the feedback we got, very positive. I felt like this particular event.
You didn't read enough places then, but go on.
I know. Well, there's that the media went off better than last year, especially to start. Which I will say this about last year. I think maybe I said this last week as well. Last year we had a new set of cameramen, which we did this year too, and not a lot of direction. I came on very late in the process last year for the memorial.
I was not personally involved in any way, shape, or form
at all. You avoided it like the plague. Understandable.
In fact, I already see the linchpin here. Last year I wasn't involved. This year I am.
This year you are. And I thought this particular weekend went off very well. But last year we had a little bit different at Vista. It went a little differently. Last year, if you recall, we were following the lead card, and we actually were able to take the chase card and cut that into the lead card after drives. So this year was a little different in that we kind of went back to a traditional method. But a lot of people last year, and I don't want to say it guts me, but I think that there is a misconstrued history of last year's memorial. Yes, it wasn't great. The first round was miserable. The second round, not great. Third and fourth round, not bad. Meh. Like, not great. Not as bad as people remember it. Go back and look. Trust me. I was involved. I know. But this year, 5-star. I thought we knocked it out of the park right away. We did a lot of really good things. I think there's a lot of questions we need to ask ourselves about the coverage. I think there's a lot of things we can improve on. I think you look at the Disc Golf Network, which we're gonna break it here tonight. The Disc Golf Network right now has 1,500 subscribers.
What?
So, and it's not a big surprise. It's going to be announced sometime before the after show comes out. So on Friday, I've seen the work. Everybody has said it's okay to announce how many we've got. I think they're going to release a nice little infographic about everything, minutes watched, all this other stuff. This was probably the second or third, I can't for sure say, largest disc golf event in history, probably behind Worlds of last year. If I'm talking just final day, if you include all of Worlds last year, I think that it's going to be tough to catch that until probably Worlds this year. But it is going, I would say, very well. But there are some concerns that I saw out on the internet. We see concerns about the FPO coverage, that the FPO is getting less coverage than they did last year because we're overlapping. And with the MPO going first, specifically this weekend, where MPO was a contested tournament, whereas if FPO was basically decided round 3 when Paige lit up with a 10:57. Unless Paige didn't show up, there was a really good chance she wasn't going to lose this event. So I think we're going to have to take a look as we go throughout the year, and I know it's going to piss people off, because there's going to be a time when we see an MPO leader at 4 or 5 strokes, and we decide to focus on FPO. So come halfway through the round, when FPO tees off, and it's, let's make up 2 names, Kat and Paige, and they're head-to-head, that we focus on FPO, I guarantee you we're going to hear people scream that they want to, even still with a 6-stroke lead, watch the MPO. It's just going to happen. And this is where, this is on me, this is on the Pro Tour, this is on Disc Golf Network, this is on Jeff Spring, Terry, all of us, to be able to tell a story for where the story is. So just our viewers, I think, understand Smashbox is going to try to do what's best for disc golf. We're going to try to tell the story of where the compelling information is. And that might not be MPO every week. This week it was. but it might not be every week. So to the people who are complaining that FPO isn't getting as much coverage, yes, hands down, it's going to be this way all year. I guarantee it. Like, if they're both close, MPO's finishing up probably. We're probably going to focus more on them than FPO. It's just, we've seen the numbers. We know where it is. I would love to be able to just focus on FPO separately at times. But the way things are working this year, it just doesn't always work out that way.
Well, and let me follow that sentiment up with exactly what Jeff and the Pro Tour continue to say, and I fully agree with it. We're looking for the story. We're looking for the best action and story that's taking place and unfolding live at that moment to hopefully bring you exactly that. If that means you missed a 75-footer for an eagle throw-in, you missed a terrible rollaway that turned a birdie into a double bogey or a triple bogey, that means you missed a close call or a foot fault on the MPO side because we are on FPO. The ultimate catch-all is the next day we'll still always have shot-by-shot post-produced coverage.
MPO lead, FPO
exactly.
lead, MPO chase.
So Jeff and the Pro Tour and all of us are not trying to slight or diminish anyone's play or anyone's accomplishments or shots. And I think there's some people that really have been stuck on the idea that, well, this really takes away from, the what ifs. Sure, it might. What if, as Ryan on the board just said, what if there's an ace and we're not on it? That is absolutely possible because we can't be everywhere at all times, no matter when you're having. There could be 4 aces on the third card of FPO, and we may never be on the third card of FPO all year anyway. Like, it just, that could happen. Even if we were out there, there's always that what if. So that will always be the case. So just know that if you miss something, or if you're really frustrated that you're not getting every single shot, every tap in, every single throw, post-production will still have it. And I think Jeff on the show and in some writings this weekend really wants to change and make that the official narrative here, that live isn't intended to give you every single shot from either division. That's no longer or isn't the objective of our live broadcast. It is to paint the story and to present the best story of what's happening at that time in the best way possible, but that does not guarantee every shot of every player of every time. So I hope I don't repeat that too many times, but I do understand where they're coming from, and I wanted to relay exactly what the sentiment has been, because I think that's what a lot of people are really bent on, and I can understand it.
I can understand it because we've set a standard in the past over. We said it a couple of weeks ago with FPO. It's changed every year that we've gone from getting highlights to playing the whole round beforehand. Or I'm sorry. First we cut the FPO into the MPO. So like right after they would throw, we'd play the FPO shots.
Yep.
And then we went to playing the whole round beforehand with commentators on site.
Yep.
And then we went to 2 separate live rounds, which was awesome and great. And I think it helped grow the FPO sport and the division to now we are focusing more on I'll keep saying where the story is. And JT O'Brien asks, are all the cameras not recording? They are all recording. So worst case scenario, I could ask one of the cameramen, hey, can you pull that clip back up so we can show it? Because the way the system works here, sometimes I can, it's goofy. My system isn't 100% powerful. This is I want to say consumer-based switching system. It does do some recording, but we have some glitches here and there and some issues, but which we're obviously working to get that covered out. Thanks, Matt Travis, for the super chat. Much appreciated. So we could probably find a way to show it, at least one angle of it. So and there are people that says, well, gosh, maybe it shouldn't be overlapped. There were a ton of people that enjoyed the fact that if the men get backed up, we have the women to go to. Cool. Guess what? We're going to show the women for 15 minutes while the men sit on hole 8 or whatever the case may be. Now, this event, we didn't have that. The men really smoothed through the entire round without any issue. I try to do picture-in-picture. I don't think it's always the best scenario because for our commentators, I think it's, I don't want to say distracting. It doesn't always lend itself to the story. So, I mean, do we, again, I know this weekend we were playing up second place in FPO. Who's going to get second place in FPO? A lot of players don't care. A lot of viewers, don't care. The players care. The viewers don't care. The viewers care about a winner. And with MPO, we were really looking at a winner. It was Calvin and Eagle. They were going head to head, back and forth. So, JT O'Brien, yes, Waco is going to be an entirely different scenario where we're going to run into backups. We're going to run into scenarios where, hey, guess what? Maybe the signal isn't that great on holes 1 and 2. So we do need to kind of fill in with some FPO footage. What I want to say this, and to especially the Smashies, just have a little faith. Have a little faith in Smashbox. We are truly trying to do our best for the sport and trying to do our best for the coverage. If I'm not showing something, it's not because I'm trying to, for no reason, give one division more coverage than the other. It's because I see most of the shots and I can kind of feel out where I think, and again, this is a lot on me, where I think the story should be. And that might not be how you feel, but that might be how I feel. And I personally, so you kind of have to trust us in that it's going to be that way. And hopefully, I know there's 1,000 internet people. There's 13,000 internet people out there this weekend that watched. And the men were on hole 12, I think, the one coming back from the road. Is that 12 or 11? 9, 10, 11 coming back.
When you're out in the corner and
yeah,
you come back,
coming back.
You come back 11, yeah.
I literally missed one drive because we were watching FPO, and the other 3 were in picture-in-picture on a par 4 where everybody throws a hyzer off the drive. 30 messages on the chat board. Why aren't we watching MPO? That's where the battle is. The women they were on like hole 2 or 3, and there was some jockeying for second place between Jen Allen and Henna. Henna was kind of starting to light it up. And I showed 3 of them in picture-in-picture, and still people were screaming about it. And I get it. MPO is the story for a lot of people. They only care about MPO. We've seen the numbers. The numbers drop 50% when MPO's over.
Yeah, and that's part of the conversation that I had with Kimberly tonight was no matter what we do, and this isn't just I'm not getting out the violin, but no matter what we do, somebody's not going to be happy.
Of course.
If you're showing MPO tap outs, why aren't we showing FPO tap outs? If we're showing FPO tap outs, well, I'd rather watch the men stand around at a backup and talk to each other. That's really interesting to me. Like, we understand because I have heard literally every single perspective and angle of what you would rather watch. And it's everything but what's on your screen. We get it. There is just simply no way to ever show every single thing that just you want to watch. So to feed into the trust us and there's a little give and take here. And a lot of people will continue to say throughout the year, well, can't you just record everything all over the course all day long and then just show it to us? It's not that simple. We are not CBS Broadcasting. We are not Fox Sports Network. We are not ESPN. We, of course, are trying to record, and we're trying to put up as much as possible with the manpower and the resources that are available. And I hate to sound all scoldy, but there's a lot of people that still just really feel like we have a million more.
They want. I think they know
what we have. So much more.
They want so much more. And I'm with them. I want so much more. We all want more. Going back to FPO numbers that I touched on, what I saw all 4 days, when MPO, I can look at the graphs. When MPO ends, there's a YouTube graph that shows you the following
numbers.
The viewership numbers. And once MPO ends, I can pinpoint the minute. It drops 50% every day. Now, that sounds really bad. Like you're losing half your viewers. But flip this on its head and say, we were at 8, 10, 11, 13,000 each day. The women last year, when they teed off at 9 in the morning, were getting 1,500 viewers, maybe 2,000. On the final day, they might peak out at 3,000. We were getting 4,500, 4,000, 6,000 on that final day. So I understand that like Calvin was saying, the numbers tell a story and they can also lie. I can sit here and tell you, man, we lost half our viewers. Clearly, nobody cares about FPO. And I can turn around and say, oh, wait a minute. That's 2 to 3 times what we were getting in previous years.
Yeah, and that, so, I think that's where we always have to kind of...
There's a full story to tell.
Yeah, and I think and that was one of my questions back to, and I said it multiple times throughout the weekend, would we rather have a peak of 2,500 people watching FPO, and that's at an absolute peak over 18 holes?
And those are really dedicated FPO watchers.
Would we rather have that number, or with this new format, what if we have 5,000 people that are tuned in for the last 9 holes where it's purely dedicated to the FPO? I mean, and again, there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's just another way to look at it, because some people were very adamantly saying, well, I missed the first 6 or 8 or 9 holes of the FPO and they deserve their own. And I understand that. But if we're trying to grow the overall exposure for the women's side of the game, right now it seems like the numbers have proven that the positioning worked, at least this weekend. Now, we clearly can reassess. If we find out that this weekend was an anomaly, the Pro Tour and SmashBoxx and the Disc Golf Network look at all the numbers and we say, okay, hey, this worked the first weekend, but the 3 weekends after, it didn't pan out as favorably. Maybe we should try something else. But the numbers were there this weekend that proved that if you have the FPO go after or closing out after the MPO, we had a lot more of that retention and people watching and eyeballs on the women's game. That's, dare I say, the trade-off of having them shown earlier in the day with exclusive coverage only on them. So I hope that makes sense for some of you out there. And I know some of you will still want to argue that, and that's fine, but those are the facts.
And you guys that are watching right now at 11:30 Central, you're our heart right here. Like, you are the people who understand, and I'm going to lean on you a little bit in the chat board for a lot of things, whether it's moderation, whether it's just explaining, like, listen, these guys are they're doing their best. We kind of, I hate to keep saying you have to trust us, because you don't have a choice. It's
leave. Watch it yourself.
Yeah,
fly there.
Fly to the course and watch it. But ultimately, I'm not concerned about the people I'm probably talking to. But you guys know you're a smaller portion of the bigger piece of pie that tends to watch. So it's just one of the things I noticed was that, we get complaints when we're off of MPO. We get complaints that we're not on FPO as much. We've seen a lot of back and forth, and all we can do is keep flexing and trying and trying to figure out the right way to tell the story. And I think we're closer than we have been in the past with the resources that we have. And trust me, the cameramen love it. They're not waking up at 6 in the morning. Some of them still are, probably, to do a bunch of other work, but they don't have to get on that course and do 2 full rounds. So the behind the scenes people are enjoying it. I don't have to be up at 5 to 6 a.m. to sit here in front of the computer for 15 hours a day. I'm down to 12 hours. It's really nice. So ultimately, that's kind of where I stand with the media. I thought overall we had a very successful weekend. Like I said, the Disc Golf Network hit 1,500 subscribers, or just like right at there. It might be like 1,480 or 90. And it was ranked like number 130th in sports apps on the iTunes store. Pretty cool. You know, it jumped up there. It came down. I think that we're going to see, and this was, I felt 1,500 on a weekend where we were giving it away for free on every platform.
Yeah.
It was on our Twitch page, which apparently had the best quality, even though it comes from one source, the lowest latency, just because that's naturally Twitch. And it was on YouTube and Disc Golf Network. I'm curious to see what happens over the next 2 to 3 events when only the final round is multicast. The other ones are behind the Disc Golf Network. I think there is some really good and big potential to be had here with this platform, and I'm excited.
Yeah, certainly looking forward to it. The first of 10 or 11 overall events on the Pro Tour, and off to a good start. Like Johnny said, of course, there are opportunities for growth and improvement, and we'll continue to look at all of those things, but it's going to be great that we are kicking off to a good start here in the 2020 season.
And Matt Travis says he doesn't think the FPO would have dropped as much if it was closer at the top. I
agree with. I certainly agree with that.
You're probably right, but I saw 50% every day. Some days 50% was 8,000 to 4,000, whether it was 10,000 to 5,000, or our final day, which was like 13,000 to 6,000. It was 50% every day, regardless of where it was. Now, Paige obviously will know more as the weeks go on, and depending on who you ask, hopefully the FPO is closer. If you're Paige Pierce, you hope not. You hope you just walk through the season, but I'm sure everyone else in that FPO field is really hoping for a closer competition, and we're going to know more about that in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to be able to make a lot of decisions coming up.
Yeah, so, and it will be interesting to see if any other events, live or in any other capacity, adopt a method that is similar to this. And I think also something that I saw out on the course was, the first day it didn't feel like when the MPO players got done with their round, and granted we just had a feature card, we didn't have a lead card out on the first day, but when the feature card was done, we didn't see a lot of the on-site fans go back out and necessarily catch up with the FPO division. I felt like that continued to grow a little bit over the weekend, and then we have to I think look deep and say, are we more concerned about on-site, or are we concerned about online viewership? And do they have to be mutually exclusive in our concerns? Because in an ideal world, yeah, if we have 500 people watching MPO drop in the final putt, you would love for 500 people to then go join the few hundred that are hopefully watching the FPO battle unfold, and that's how we would close out FPO. Will that happen? That's to be determined as well. But right now, I don't feel like the gallery that followed FPO was any smaller than if they were out there at 9 a.m. on their own. That's for sure. So those are all things that we'll continue just to have to watch. And some things are going to have to be taken into consideration, whether it's on-site or online, and do what's best for the tournament and for the players.
And every
there.
course is different, because at the Memorial, when the men finished up, the women were out on hole 10 and 11.
Literally a mile away.
A mile.
It's 1 mile from edge to edge of that course.
To walk that course.
When you're at Duke's and you need to get to hole 10, it is, I think, almost down to the step, almost exactly 1 mile. You're talking about the farthest point out, and the start. So I know that can make it a little bit more challenging for some people to be like, hey, let's backtrack. And I already told them the tour just needs a shuttle sponsor at every event to then take the cameramen.
Good luck with that.
And everyone else out to wherever the women are. That's what they need.
I think at some of the courses you could have like a 4-wheeler or something along those lines, but we'll see how that works. Alan Amos says, I wonder how much of that drop-off was habit. possibly because this is the first year that that FPO has been continuing after MPO. But I kind of feel like if you watched, you kind of know that the FPO is going on and that we're probably going to continue. So I don't know if it was habit or not, but I think that
well, what we need to do is train everyone that even if you're getting up and you're going to go mow the lawn or
just
somehow
leave it on.
Yeah, just leave it on.
Sponsors like that.
Exactly. Just leave it on. Maybe you have been ignoring your child in their room for the last 3 hours because you've been watching MPO and now the FPO are on and you're like, oh, I should actually go pay attention to my kid. Just leave the player playing the video. Don't turn it off while you go pay attention to your kid. I don't know. That's what we need to train people to do is even if you're not, just leave it on. It looks better for everybody. Yeah, and Disc Golf Nerd, maybe is touching on a point and that maybe there's an area of improvement for us as well, possibly. He says that you would have to assume at least some people turned it off thinking it was over. And that's possible too. People think, oh, Calvin just won this thing. There's an interview by these two guys out in the course, and then, they're just going to wrap up the whole tournament and it's over. There's absolutely a possibility that happened, and I think that's an opportunity for our entire team to make sure that no one is confused by that moving forward.
I felt that the booth was very clear about that. Jamie was very insistent, like, stay tuned. We're going to continue on with the FPO. But you might not be listening. It might be on in the background. There are plenty of reasons why that may not work. I was very happy. I think we've mentioned a couple times. This was a brand new camera crew. We had Mo, formerly of Central Coast, now with the Disc Golf Network. He was able to do it. There was Sam and Evan.
Mm-hmm.
Sam and Evan, both on our cameras. One of which has some NBC Sports
ties or background,
and the other was ESPN, or
we'll say that.
Sure. I know Mo has ESPN, but I think maybe the other cameraman. So while they didn't have a lot of golf experience, they did have a lot of camera experience. It's very similar to what Steve kind of sold everybody last year and saying, hey, I think it's easier to teach disc golf than it is to teach cameras because these guys are great cameramen. And I felt that never once did I think, oh man, I really wish these guys knew the sport a little better, because they do know the sport. They just hadn't really filmed a lot. I think they'd filmed a couple practice rounds and warming up. But I honestly thought they did a great job following the disc. I thought they did a great job getting into position. As any course that you're kind of walking for the first or second time, you can maybe pick better spots. My favorite story from the weekend was on the first round of Vista.
Yeah, so round 3.
Round 3, we go from hole 4, and our catch cameraman, everybody else goes to hole 5. Waiting. I'm watching my catch camera on my screen here, and all I see is blue sky. That's weird. Why is he pointing? He's been great for 2.5 or 2 1/3 rounds, and I'm like, why does he keep pointing at the sky? What's going on? Is all I'm thinking. And finally, the guys are teeing off at this point, and I ask, I'm like, camera 2, what are you doing? Did you get lost? And he goes, yeah, me and the Jomez guy went to hole 6. Funny enough, the new Jomez cameraman, the catch cam, the guy who took, I think, Michael's position, he doesn't know the course either that well. So they went from hole 4, they missed hole 5's basket, and started walking all the way down the long one at hole 6. I hear Terry chime in, just stay down there. At this point, it's not worth coming back.
Yeah.
Because it would have been a hike to get all the way back just to turn around and go back out there. So him and the Jomez guy made the exact same mistake of wandering. I should go and look at the Jomez footage and see if they have any catch cam from there, because I can't imagine they do.
Can't. No,
they probably just have
gone.
They probably just have throw cam just like we did. So it's funny because they were kind of relying on each other out there, and they had a pretty good rapport. And both of them just missed hole 5's basket and just started walking. And I got a good kick out of that, and I chuckled. And you do what you can. And you only
oh man, what if there would have been an ace there?
Oh, we only would have had one angle of it.
Yep.
It would have been rough. So that was kind of my big chuckle on the weekend, was both of them, not just our guy. No one got hit this year.
that we know of. Not in our crew.
Not in our crew. I don't know about the other crews, but none of the live people.
Let's
Last
just
year
assume they all got hit in other crews.
we had the Jessica Weiss incident last year with our cameraman who just was out of bounds, but still kind of got clipped. We had none of that this year, so that's always a good way to start.
No water bottles were damaged.
Not our problem.
Yep. So everything seemed pretty good there. Right.
Seth Steinway says, can we talk about Jamie Thomas's debut? How is he to work with? Well, he's kind of a diva. He requests just green M&Ms. He requests
but he wants you
a masseuse.
To suck on him first and then put him spin
really
him back
awkward.
In the bowl.
It's really awkward watching Nate Doss lick him and then hand it to him. But I don't know.
They're always green.
They're always green. No. Jamie is a professional. He's a consummate professional. He does his homework. He knows what he's talking about. He knows the players. As we've said with any commentary person, you can love him or hate him. Some people love Big Germ. Some people hate them. Some people hate Terry. Some people only mildly dislike Terry. Yeah. I mean, there's really, but
there's only two notches: either wildly dislike me or mildly dislike me.
But overall, he's great to work with. He comes prepared. He knows a lot of stuff about video and audio. He has a background in it, so ultimately, it's good to work with him. And I've got no qualms with how he does commentary. I know, but again, I know some people, and you're gonna get that. Some people don't like him. Some people do. I've heard people complain that he whispers like golf when he's not on site, and I've heard people say, "No, I really like that. I like that he's a very calm and even keeled person." Yeah, I mean, whatever. To me, I've said this before. I don't honestly. I hear them all the time. I drown them out. I key in on specific words, and I kind of direct them as far as when commercials are coming up. They talk a lot. Everybody does when they're in the commentary booth, and I don't hear them. It's just it sounds like the Peanuts teacher to me. So the only time I listen is when I need to count someone down, and Gary makes fun of me because for whatever reason, even though I'm here in Milwaukee and you're in Arizona, I this is how it goes. I go, okay, Terry, we're going to come to you in 5, 4, 3, 2. I count you down with my fingers. And Gary looks at me and goes, he can't see you. You know that, right?
And he's deaf in one ear. What are you doing?
And I don't know why I feel the urge to like lift my hand and count with my fingers. Like you can see me or like I'm in front of a studio, but I do it. But it's weird. So that's the only time I really listen to what's going on with the commentary, because people ask me all the time, like, how can you stand X, Y, and Z? And it's like, I don't hear them. It becomes a drone to me.
I know I've stated this otherwise, and I know I've also brought it up even a couple times tonight, but I think this might be the year I should get serious about looking into a hearing aid. And I obviously feel like that would benefit me for a number of reasons, not just for my disc golf work, but having a second ear that is of normal capacity, I guess, or of normal I don't know what the word. Yeah, being able to work would be good. Then again, I wonder how an earbud, if I continue to use wireless earbuds, if that would impact. I guess it depends on the style.
Yeah, I don't know if you could have a hearing aid and an earbud
actually work. That might not work.
That might not work.
Man. The struggle's real here, people. I bring that up because I was thinking about someone who said, does Terry always stand on a hill when standing next to someone like Calvin? Because there was once or twice where Calvin and I were relatively close to the same height, which we're clearly not.
And it's not like this where I have to adjust the cameras.
Yeah, and I said, no, I always stand on a particular side due to my hearing. And then I followed it up and said, well, and then I stand on a hill. But mainly, I always stand. I could care less what the height difference is between me and any person, but it's always that I'm on the same particular side of any person, just like I am with Johnny even now, even though we're actually hearing each other through things like headphones. But nonetheless, and I actually had to instruct our cameraman, who then worked with us to do the check-ins. There was once or twice where I was lining up and I could tell he was shooting over my right shoulder, but I'm leaned kind of this way. And I said to him, that's when I had to explain to him, where I stand normally and whatnot. And I said, it feels really weird if I feel like you're shooting over that way, because then I'm supposed to turn that way, and I don't turn that way. It just feels weird to do it. And I said, so if you can, I'd like to always be framed up, so if you're going to have any space, have it on this side of me as opposed to over here, because it even feels weird to do it now. I need to do some more trunk extensions. Anyway, those are the real problems we have out there, people. Believe it or not.
I'd love to get your feedback. I kind of know most of you guys' feedback, and I appreciate a lot of it. I did, as I always do, and what we did this year, after the broadcast is over, we have like a 15 or 20-minute conference call. I go out on social media and I kind of take it in, what people liked and disliked. What I will say is I was very happy that I don't feel like the media was the conversation this year. There was obviously some talk about Disc Golf Network and whether it was worth it, and there is always that little bit of conversation, but I was relieved that people got what they expected from SmashBoxx, that we continued to provide the same quality that I feel like we had provided towards the end of last year, going into this year. A few different names and faces, but ultimately we were able to kind of keep that same thing. And a lot of what Mo is an unsung hero with him getting in all those interviews and cutting him at night. That's all just going to help expand the breadth of the broadcast. So,
all right. Well, I think we've got the official breakdown on the night. I think we also could probably give some stuff away.
Oh, that's right. I almost forgot, Terry.
Yeah, I don't. I love giving stuff away to the people.
I know you do.
All of our amazing Patreon subscribers. I want to give a quick shout out as well. Not only a SmashBoxx, I think, received 1 or 2 recently, but also my Disc Golf Guy channel has received a couple of extra. Well, they're not extra at this point. They're all necessary and helpful. But I did receive a few more Patreon subscribers via my Disc Golf Guy page. So I appreciate that. That helps anytime I'm in the post-production realm, which is almost every weekend I'm not doing live. So it goes a long way, and we certainly appreciate it. A few more questions while Johnny's doing that. Truth always wins. Thanks. We appreciate that. Saying your coverage is freaking amazing. Well, it's got work to do, but we think we're heading in the right direction. Mo was amazing. I'll agree with that. Doss is good. No complaints here, JVD. I loved what I had time to watch. Good. Hannah Macbeth as a commentator, please. Wherever it makes sense to possibly integrate her, I think we would love to. But keep in mind, she's taking a very serious approach this year to trying to compete as an FPO competitor herself. And understandably, if she's at an event trying to compete, even when she's off the course or done with her round, or even before her rounds, she probably doesn't have much of a media focus at that point. I feel like when she gets to an event, she either really knows I'm media or I'm a competitor. And more often than not, this year I think it's going to be in a competitor role. If there's times where she wants to be in a media role, I personally would love to add her and have her be part of the team.
Yeah, at least she's all right.
Was Terry made aware of the terrorisms in the comments? Quite entertaining. I saw a few of them myself. I do appreciate any love and support you guys have out there, but I will follow that up and say, if there are things that are practical that I can inform you of, I would like to know that. And I don't know if there's a really good way to do that outside of maybe sending me a Facebook message, which is easier for me to check during the round. I have to continue to challenge myself to give you guys information and sights and sounds and things that you're not seeing or hearing on camera. And that's kind of my own goal, is to always be trying to provide something that you haven't seen or you haven't heard. But I have to balance that, and somebody else pointed this out, I saw in a piece of feedback, saying some things the players don't want me to necessarily repeat or talk about either. So I have to really find that balance of, hey, someone just said something about whatever, and
Simon hates when you talk about his diet.
okay, whatever the case might be, I have to find out, well, was that told to me in any form of confidence, or is that something? And there's been times, I'll admit, there have been times where somebody will tell me something and I'll say, is it okay if I share that? And if I feel like if it's a conversation that's in that direction, I will hopefully say that to them and then react accordingly. And when they say, I'd rather you not, I said, well, then too bad, dummy. You shouldn't have told me.
You shouldn't have told me.
No. But I do have to be very careful about that, because just because it's off camera and it's in, well, I was going to say in the huddle or in on the tee or behind the scenes, doesn't mean that it's always going to be or should be fair game for the world to know about.
Well, let's give something away. We have a group of people who are just phenomenal. These are people we call our patrons.
And we love them.
Oh, God, we love them. Patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV. If you want to continue to support and help SmashBoxxTV provide these live broadcasts, and more so the podcast that we're able to do. Tonight I stepped it up, and I threw 2 highlights in there, Terry.
No, oh my gosh. Next level.
I mean, as I said,
those were brought to you. Start calling off every one of our patrons right now.
Those are brought to you by our patrons. I gave it a good 74% of effort tonight, more so than like the 58 that I normally give. So I just want you to know that's for you, patrons. That's for you. Anyway, we have 201 people that are eligible for our weekly giveaway. If you'd like to be patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV, as for as little as $1 a month, blah, 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 blah. Every week we talk about this, but please go out and support us, be a patron. And if you don't want to be a patron and you have an Amazon Prime membership, go to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/SmashBoxxTV, and you can link that up, and you can hook that up for us. It costs you nothing. Zero. You win nothing, Charlie. So you can do that, and Terry's on it right now. Hopefully he's going to sign in. He's going to try to get in. And I think I said this. Yeah, Twitch was always a little faster than everybody else. So if we can, I need to talk to Jeff to continue the discussion about putting it on Twitch that final day. We did that for this weekend, but I don't know if it's going to be that way all year. I know it's going to be on YouTube for sure, but we'll get that. So 201 people eligible, Terry. How many random numbers should I draw from?
Well, I mean, what podcast is this? 287?
Yeah, this is riveting podcasting.
Podcast 287. I was gone back-to-back weekends covering disc golf, Vegas and the Memorial. That's 2, so take the second number.
All right. I'm going to show you guys. We're here at random.org, 201. Generate the first number is 35.
How did you sort them, Johnny?
By email address 106. So now I need to pull up this. I'm going to take this down. See you guys later. 106 is Mike Bunch. Mike Bunch. Congratulations. You are our Patreon.
That is a new
winner.
name.
That's a name I haven't heard.
A bunch.
Mike Bunch, whose email starts with a K. Who knew? He is at our $10 clothing level.
We
so
love you more than most, Mike.
I love you. You're the top level of love, Mike. So congratulations, Mike. We will reach out to you, and we will make sure to get you something like a disc from Terry's stash or something like that.
Some goodies.
Sure. So thank you very much, Mike Bunch.
We appreciate that. I'm going to read a few more comments before the board from the board before we start closing things out. Was Germ's Ace recorded? I feel like we would have seen it somewhere by now, but I'm guessing that it was not. I would recommend. I mean, my only advice to him would be to get on a higher card so that it does get recorded next time. I don't know, unless that was first round. I don't recall. But I feel like we would have seen it if it was recorded. Is Val Dosh retired? I will just high level say that both her and Nate clearly are not playing mini tournaments. There may be as little as 0 even played this year. Full-blown retired, I would say no to that, but both her and Nate are 98% of their focus is on Bevel, with the other 2% currently being on the Disc Golf Pro Tour work. So playing golf and playing competitively is not at the is just not on their list at the moment. And they're both the type that feel like if they're going to go out and play in a tournament, they want to give weeks and months of preparation into being fully prepared. Even though they're both great, they don't really want to just go out there and be like, well, we haven't really practiced much, but we're still going to play. They're just not really built that way. So, but I wouldn't say retired, because we're going to see more of them at some point. Those highlights were spot on. Nice job, Johnny. Just Terry saying the putts on 16 in the playoff were from outside circle to not circle 1. Did I make that mistake? Did I say they were outside? Did I say they were in circle 2 and outside circle 1? Or are you telling me I called them?
Can we trust you with anything?
Circle 2? No, I wouldn't. I mean, I did solo commentary in a playoff. I wouldn't even believe what I said. I made stuff up.
I don't.
Seth says my son can't fall asleep after a 4-day weekend. I told him to watch. Seth, you jerk.
Well, to be fair, I responded with, my wife does the same thing. She tells me sometimes on non-Tuesday nights, Terry and I will get on a conversation about between 10 and 10:30 at night for whatever reason. Terry's a night owl. And I'll, be getting ready for bed. I'll lay down in bed, finishing up a conversation with Terry. My wife looks at me and she's like, okay. She says she falls asleep to me and Terry talking better than she falls asleep other ways. So she actually, I can't say she enjoys it, but it definitely puts her to sleep.
I just have that kind of soothing voice for her.
Yeah, that's
when
fine.
I whisper stuff. Chris says, thanks for everything you do, Terry and Johnny. You're welcome. Truth says that I said they were from 40 to 45 feet, but they were outside the blue flags, which were circle 2. Okay, I could have made that mistake. I think you're wrong.
We'll go check the
tape.
tape.
I could have made the mistake.
We'll go check the tape.
Germ's ace, how can I see that? I'm guessing you can't, JT Gibson.
I saw some video of Germ collecting the disc out of the basket, but not
correct.
But not actually the shot. So I don't.
And I don't. There were no camera crews on him then either. And Scott Reek, I think, actually posted.
Oh yeah, it was Scott Reek. Okay.
Scott Reek from down in Kansas City area, big trilogy guy, used to be in Wisconsin, said that as you said, he got the retrieval. But
I want to make a point right now. You can't see it, but right behind me, there's a box that says Innova on it.
Should we open them?
We could.
I haven't even looked at them. This is crazy. They arrived while I was sometime in my trip in the last 10 or 12 days.
Patreon supporter discs.
They have arrived. They are here, and I didn't even open them to double check how great they look.
I haven't. Well, maybe we don't want to open them because maybe if there's something wrong with them, we don't necessarily.
They're going to look great, I'm sure.
I'm sure there is. But now on top of that is this. It's a live view. This is the unit that transmits all of our data from the camera to a server, and this is one that's faulty.
Possibly.
It's faulty. I already ordered a replacement. It'll be here tomorrow.
I think you're faulty.
So it's got apparently like a loose connection, is what the guys were telling me.
I think you have a loose connection.
I don't doubt that. So we're gonna just swap this out with a new one and see how she goes, because we have warranty SLA stuff on that.
All right, guys. I don't know. I don't think we have anything else. Don't do that. There's something to that. Ryan Pilcher and crew and all of you, Keith, I know you're just showing up pretty late, you said, and truth always wins, and so many of our regulars. We, of course, have to again thank Disc Baron for the digital green room that they provide. We got to thank anyone that super chatted. I think we saw Matt Travis do that a little bit earlier tonight. So we appreciate that. All of our Patreon supporters at any level, thank you to each and every one of you guys. We have to thank Calvin Heinberg for joining us tonight. Give us that smile, that insight, that quick wit. He's got it all, and super happy to hear from him. I have a feeling we might be talking to him more. We'll crack the Kelvin code by the end of the year. That'll be one of my goals for sure, as he's so fun to talk to. For Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, this has been podcast episode and after show 287. We're going to see you guys next week. I don't know. I don't know who we'll have. I don't know what's going on, but we'll see you then for 288. We love you guys. We'll see you next week when you step inside the Smash Box.